Okay. All right. So good morning once again, everyone. And if you have any question from yesterday class, I'd be happy to take. Otherwise, we would move ahead with reactive forms and forms today. If you may have any questions from yesterday class or day before yesterday class, I'd be very happy to take it. And once again, one of you, could you confirm me whether my voice is clearly audible to you and you are able to see my screen clearly enough?
Yes, we can hear you and we can also see the screen.
Sure. So if you have any question from yesterday class, I'd be happy to answer that before we move further.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, so the small doubt of regarding the hierarchy of the service.
Sure.
So it first find in one component and then parent component, and if not provided, then in the module. Okay. So if not founded in module, should it go to its parent module?
So how it starts? So let's say that there is a component E, and you have injected a service in component E. So what it does, it first try to find that service in component E. If it does not find it, it goes to component D, and then it goes to component C, then it goes to component B, and then it goes to component A. And let's say that it has not found that service provided in any of the component in that component hierarchy, then it would go and search that component in the modules in which those components are created. Let's say that if it has not found that component in that module, then it would go to the parent module. So usually in Angular, always you would have one parent module, which is your app module, and it then Angular will check for that service in provider's area of app module. And if it does not find it, then it goes and check whether that service is provided using providing option. And then in providing option, again, there could be 2-3 options. It could be root, it could be any, it could be platform, and depending on that, it would create the object and provide wherever required.
Okay.
Does it answer your question?
Yeah. So the lazy module is there, and if the service is injected and the parent module is provided, so it directly takes out from that.
Exactly. That's what we did. That is what we did in yesterday demo. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you say directly take out, again, if you look at that providing option in, that has different behavior. If you are using providing option root, that has different behavior, right? So again, I'll summarize it for the benefit of the class. So if that service is provided using providing option, and if value of providing option is root, and let us assume that service is not re-provided again anywhere in the application, then in that scenario, what it would happen that only one object of that service would get created, and that one object would be shared across everywhere. All right. However, if you have created a service using providing colon any, in that case, what happens that Angular creates one object for main module and all the eagerly loaded module. So same object would be shared in the main, in every component and directives of the main module, and it would be shared in every component and directives of the eagerly loaded modules. Again, assumption is that you have not re-provided that service, and it would create separate objects for separate lazy loaded modules. So if your Angular application has one main module, 3 eagerly loaded module, and let's say 5 lazy loaded module, and you have created a service using providing colon any, where and also you have made sure that you have not re-provided a service, in that case, Angular would create 6 objects, 5 each for every lazy loaded module, and then 1 for eagerly loaded module, and 3, 1 for main module and 3 lazy eagerly loaded module. Is it clear?
Yes.
Good. Anyone has more questions? In the class, anyone has any more questions? Okay. Okay. So should we, how many of you have done the assignment which I gave you? So far, I gave you two assignments. One was earlier, and yesterday again, I told you to do the same thing which we did in the class. Anyone had any difficulty doing that? Or you will do that over the weekend? You can unmute yourself and let me know whether you have already done it or you are going to do it on the weekend.
I
You
have
done it.
started, but it will be done by tomorrow.
Okay. So complete it. Everyone complete it. And if you have any question, you can ask in the Monday class. If you have question today, also I would be happy to answer that.
Sure.
So if I may ask, any one of you have completed it, like even a single person in the class?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
did not find any
Yes.
difficulty. It was working fine, right?
Yes.
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 Okay, so can you put your code on GitHub and share link with me? I just want to review the code, how you have written it.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, and you can get my email address from Mahendra, and I'll also share it here. So after this class, you can push that code on GitHub, and then you can send me the repository link, and then I would I'll review that. Okay. Whoever has done it, and if you have not done it, complete it over the weekend. All right, everyone. Yes,
Okay.
no? Okay, okay, all right. So if you do not have any question from last classes, let us move to the next topic. And today we are going to learn about forms. Once again, you are able to see my screen, that notepad where I'm typing, right? So as you rightly know that forms means collection of controls. Your user will interact with forms. So let's say that there's a login form. The login form would have two labels. One is username, one password. Then two text boxes, one to enter username, one to enter password. Then two buttons, one like submit button, and one could be cancel button, and so on. So forms are collection of controls, and using the forms, your user interact with your application. So it is clear, everyone. You could have add product form, you could have login form, you could have sign up form, you could have any kind of form. So essentially, form is nothing, especially for the interns. Form is nothing but collection of controls, and using that form, your user interact with your website. When I say collection of controls, means a form could have buttons, it could have buttons, it could have text boxes, it could have radio buttons, it could have check boxes, it could have um, labels, and so on. So any input control which can accept user input or which can capture user action. So for example, button that does not accept user input, but it captures user action, right? When user clicks on that. So any those kind of controls are could be a part of forms. So when I say forms, Angular could have, so one example of form could be login forms. When I say that, hey, go ahead and create a login form, what would you do? You'll create a label, and that label would say username. Then you would create another label, label 2 for say, and that would say, let's say, enter password. Then you'd have a text box, that text box to enter username. Then you may have another text box, and that text box to enter password. Then you may have a button, that button 1 to submit a form. When I say submit a form, is to send the data over the server. Then you may have button 2, that just to cancel the form. So let's say that you are on the screen and you just want to cancel and navigate away, then you'd use button 2. And yeah, so this could be inside a form, and all these together can be called as a login form. All right, so this is what forms are. Everyone clear, especially in terms what are the why you need a form? Everyone, especially interns?
Yes.
Yes, I want to hear more yes.
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 Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Perfect. Now let us go a step back and understand that forms are, of course, like forms are to capture user data. That is correct. But that is one characteristics of form. The other characteristics of form is that a form should be validated. What I mean by that, you might have seen those kind of requirements that password should be at least 8-character long, or username cannot be blank, or username must be an email. Those kind of requirements, you must have come across those kind of requirements when you are using a form as a user. So those kind of requirements where you put a lot of those kind of requirements says that password should not be more than 8 characters long, user field must be an email, user cannot be blank, and those kind of things. That is called validation on the form. Okay, so this is another keyword. When I say that, hey, whether let's say that if I say that this form is an invalid form. When I say this form is invalid form, means all the controls which are on the form, either some of those controls or one of those controls or all of those controls contains some invalid data. So if I say that, hey, this login form is an invalid form, and I have a validation that email fields should or must contain an email value, and on that, in the email username, I have, let's say, written Dhananjay. So of course, Dhananjay is not a email value, and since Dhananjay is not an email value, and if you try to submit that form, if you try to work with that form, you should get an error that, hey, this form is not a valid form. So you understand, when I say this form is invalid form or this form is not a valid form, it means either one control or some of the controls or all of the controls contain some invalid value. And when I say invalid value, means some value which you have set as a rule, as a validation rule for that form. So this is clear, everyone, what is invalid form, what is valid form?
Yes.
All of you? All right. So once you know that, and keep in mind that forms are everywhere. It doesn't matter which technology you are using, whether you are creating a website in PHP, you are creating a website in Java, you are creating a website in ASP.NET, you are creating a website in React, you are creating a website in Vue, or for that matter, you are creating a website in Angular. Doesn't matter using which technology you are creating a website. Always your website is going to have forms, because forms are the way your user is going to interact with your website, unless until if it is not a read-only website where only you are displaying some data. All right. So your website is going to have forms. Doesn't matter how you are creating that. So keeping that in mind, Angular also supports creating forms out of their library. So in Angular, you can create forms. There are two types of forms in Angular. So when you start writing forms in Angular, you can create forms in either of two ways. Keep in mind, you cannot mix them. So when you have started writing your forms, you need to take decision that, hey, I'm going to create this type of form, or I'm going to create that type of form. You cannot mix that. And in Angular, those two types of forms are called template-driven forms, and the second type is called reactive forms. Okay, so keep these two keywords in mind, that in Angular you have two types of forms. First is template-driven forms, and second is reactive forms. And I'm going to explain you what are the characteristics of these two different types of forms. But all of you must know that in Angular there are two types of forms: template-driven forms and reactive forms. Focus of our class is that we are going to learn in detail about reactive forms, but I'll give you some introduction of template-driven forms as well. All right. So everyone knows there are two types of forms in Angular: reactive forms and template-driven forms. Is it clear? Yes?
Yes.
All right. So let's first focus on the reactive. Let's first focus on the definition of these two types of form. So we talked about the validation on the top, that every form must have the validation. validation means whether a password should be 8 character, whether email field contain an email value, and those kind of things. So when you create a template driven forms, all this validation information, right, is part of your template. I repeat, in template driven form, all these validation information in template driven forms, all these validations are part of template. And in a reactive forms, all these validations are part of the component class. Okay, so here all the validations are part of the component template, and here all the validations are part of the component class. So this is okay. Again, template driven forms are reactive forms. You may hear when you talk to some people that template driven form is better than reactive form is better than template driven form, but that is not true. This is just to a special type of design. When you create a form, you can create a form either as a template driven form, or you can create a form either as a reactive form. Nothing is better than like it's not that template is better than reactive or reactive is better than template. No, it's just purely matter of your choice, that whether you want to create a form as template driven form or you want to create a form as reactive forms. And now you know that in template, if you create a template driven form, then all these validations and all those information. Who is there? Can you go on the mute? Yeah. Am I audible now clearly to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So in template driven forms, all these validations are part of your template. Okay. So we would write all these, like whether a password field should be 8 character and all in the template. However, in reactive forms, all these validation would be part of your component class. So you write that in the code. Now, one advantage of reactive forms are, since you are writing all these configuration about your forms in the class, it is easy to manage. What I mean by that, and I'll show you code, that since everything is in the code, you can integrate that with the API. So for example, while designing your form, you are saying that password characters should be 8, maximum length of password field should be 8. And this information is saved in database. All right, so this information is saved in database, and on basis of you are making an API call to the database, and on basis of that you are doing configuration of your password field, that okay, this field is going to be 8 character long, and this information is in the code, not in your HTML. So tomorrow, if your requirement changes, like tomorrow, let's say that business requirement has changed, and now they want password characters should be minimum 10 characters or something like that. Only they would go and change in the database at one place, and nothing has to be changed in the template, nothing has to be changed in the component class, and your form is now taking 10 character as the valid 10 length as the maximum minimum length 10 as the validation. So that is one advantage of reactive forms. However, in template driven form, you got to put that in the template, so it is tough to integrate that. Having said that, if you have to, you can do that, but it is tough to integrate that. The second advantage of reactive forms are, since everything is in code, you can very easily bind this with an object, which is a little bit tougher in the template driven form. So maybe that is the reason many people use reactive forms, and we would also focus on the reactive forms. So have you understood one use case, one business case of reactive forms?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so let us start with first learning reactive forms, and then we would come back and again see template driven forms. And if you may have any questions, I would love to answer that. Okay, so what I have done here, I hope you can see my Visual Studio Code now. And I'll get rid of this gentleman and say H1 login forms, and we'll start writing the login form right here. Okay, so what you are able to see right now, Visual Studio Code.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and here is our output screen. So we'll write our output right here. Okay, so let's go step by step, and it is not that tough, so you should be able to understand. Okay, so let us say that we need to create, we are going to start with creating a form for login. So for that, let's go to app.component.ts, and of course you can write it anywhere. And here, let me go and create a reactive forms. Okay, so the first thing you got to do to create a reactive form is to add reactive forms module in your application. So which file you are able to see in Visual Studio Code?
App.component.ts.
Sorry, which one?
app.component.ts.
Okay. So let me go here and open app.module.ts, and in app.module.ts, I can go and add reactive forms module. So you have different module for template event forms, and you have different module for reactive forms. So here you can say that, hey, import reactive forms module. So here you see that I imported a module called reactive forms module in line number 15, and it is imported from Angular Forms. Okay, so that is step one you got to do, import reactive forms module from Angular Forms. If you miss to do this step, then Angular would start reading information about forms from template driven forms module, and you may have some error. So this step is very important. Do not forget to import if you are working with reactive forms module in your application. All right, so let's go and start with first creating a control. So to create a control, what I'm going to do, I am going to app.component.ts, and here first let's go and say on init. It is not coming.
I think implements is incorrectly spelled.
Yeah, I need a space, right? On init. All right. So here I have on init, and then we'll say ng on init, and let's put our constructor also in the action here. So we'll say constructor. All right. Let's get rid of this title here. We don't need that. Okay. So the first thing what I'm going to do is start creating. First, let us create a control in our application. So here I would say that, hey, email, and type of that is form control. Okay, so here it says that, hey, you have email has no initializer and not defined. So I will fix that. And do you remember how I fixed that? Anyone, do you remember that?
In
Yes,
tsconfig.json, you have to
Yeah,
set
and what was the information I put in that?
strict for
Something strict initializer, something, right? Just in that. I'm just looking for that exact property name. Give me a moment.
So, sir, it is necessary, or we can only keep like exclamation mark and then we can continue?
I mean, there are various ways you can do, as you rightly said. I don't think, I mean, I prefer this strict property. I prefer to make this strict property initialization false. But you are right, you can, like, whatever you suits you. tsconfig.json, and here I can do that, right? You can see my screen. and we need to put that in double quotes. Strict property initialization. Okay, so file and save, and then go to applet component.ts. It looks good now. Okay. All right. So here first we are creating a control, and let's say that first we are creating an email control. So a control is represented by a class called form control. In reactive form, a control is represented by a class called form control. So a control is equivalent to form control. So if you have to create a control on your form, that control must be backed by a class called by an object of a class called form control. Okay. So here I'm saying email form control, the type, and then what I can do in the constructor, maybe I can say this dot equal to new form control. Okay, so I need to create an object of that. So here, and of course, in this form control, you can pass various parameters. Here you see that it tells you to pass form state, validator options, abstract control options, undefined, async validation option, async validation options. Just I'll go on a mute. I'll be just back in a minute. Okay. Yeah. So you are able to hear me clearly now. So here you see that in the new form control, in the form control, am I audible, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so you see that in the form control, and we would explore those options in a bit. It has a form state. Form state means some initial value. So when you are creating a form to edit something, you have seen that form has some initial values, right? Like already product price or product title, and then you can edit that. So in that kind of scenario, you may want to have some initial value for your form control. So here we are saying form state. And it is a question mark. It means that is a nullable value. Either you can pass that value or you cannot pass that value. So that is parameter one. Parameter two is validator options. As we talked that your form can have validations, means it can have it can have like whether it can be empty, what is maximum length, what is minimum length, those kind of validations. You need to pass that validation option as the second parameter. Again, that is a question. There's a question mark in that parameter, means that is a nullable value, which means that you can have validation or you cannot have validation. So that is option number two. Then option number three is async validator. We are not going to cover async validator today, but let me explain you what is that, and maybe you may need that. You may need that in your project. So the first parameter and second parameter, clear everyone? Form state and validator options. Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Am I audible, everyone? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first parameter is
Yes.
your first parameter is your initial value. Second parameter is your validator options. Validation means whether it's required, not required, maximum length, minimum length, and all those kind of things. And third, which we are not going to cover in detail in this training, but you may want to learn that in the future because you may need that in your project, is called async validator. Now, what is async validator is very important. So let us assume everyone, let's take a use case, okay? That and you may have come across that scenario. And interns, please listen to that very carefully. You may have come across that scenario that, hey, you are creating, let us say, a sign up form. And in sign up form, let me type this, okay, for you. So you're able to see my notepad, right? So a form, a control, you're able to see my, just confirm my notepad.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so a control is actually backed by object of a form control. A control, when I say control, means an input text box and those kind of things. So control is backed by a form control. And this form control takes three parameters. And all are nullable parameters. So first it takes initial value, and that is nullable, means you can pass it or you cannot pass it. Okay, first it takes initial value. The second, it takes validation option. Okay, so validation option is again nullable. Means you can pass it and you cannot pass it. Validation options means whether that form is required, what is max length, what is min length, and all those kind of things. All right, and we'll cover that in detail in a bit. And the third it takes, which we are not going to cover in this training, but you may want to learn it further. Third it says is async validators. Async validators. Now, what is async validators? Async validators are async. So, what is async validators? So, first understand the use case where you should be using async validators. So, all of you must done some sign up form in your life, right? If you have not created it, you must have used it. So you might have come across a scenario when you, let us say, you are going to Facebook and trying to create a new profile on Facebook. So in that case, when you provide an email address in the username box, it tells you that this username already exists or this email already taken. Have you come across that scenario?
Yes.
Yes.
So it must be what Facebook must be doing, that when you enter that email or username, it must be taking that username or email and going back to the server, going back to its database, and then inside the database, it must be verifying it that, hey, whether this email exists in their database or not. If it does not exist, you are good to go. If it exists, it gives you message that, hey, this email already exists. So that checking whether that email already exists or not, that user already exists or not, must be happening in the database of Facebook. Agree? Not in the browser itself, because they have to go to the database and then check whether that email exists or not. Everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. Now going back to the database and checking takes time. It depends on the how fast is the internet and all those things. So if you have certain validation, which you can do in the browser itself, for example, whether that field is empty, what is the maximum length entered, what is the minimum length entered, those kind of validation, which can be done in the browser itself, you do that validation in the validation option. That is option number 2. However, there may be scenario such that what I explained right now, to find out whether username already exists in the database or not, you got to make an API call, go to the database, and then that API call will take some time. Sometimes it will take 5 seconds, sometimes it will take 10 seconds. And depending on that, you would get a response, and then you need to show it to the user, whatever the validation state and validation message, right? So you don't want to wait for that 5 seconds, like your user is waiting. You don't want to do that because your user may feel stuck. So in that case, what you do validation asynchronously. What you do, you take that validation and do it in an asynchronous manner such that user is not stuck. And whenever response is back from the server, then you give that message to your user. So that kind of validation you do in the third parameter, that is also known as async validator. So everyone, when you have to validate against a server using the API, you use async validator. So everyone clear about async validator?
Yes.
The use case of async validator. Everyone in the class, interns, today is very easy class. You should participate. Tough class is gone. Today is very easy topic. All of you should understand everything 100%. So interns, you are able to understand purpose of async validators?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Only 2 people?
Yes.
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 I want to hear 20 voices. I know today is Saturday, but you have to be energetic. Come on.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now you understand these three parameters. Let us see that how we can work with that. So here, if you're able to see my Visual Studio Code again, please let me know.
Yeah, we can see.
Yes.
Okay. So here, what we are saying that email is type form control. So one control is mapped to one form control object, and form control takes three parameters. We discussed about that. Okay. So here you have created a form control. Now, how you can map to the HTML? That is step 2. So to map to the HTML, what will you do, my friend? You will go to app.control component.html, and let's say here it would say that input type is equal to text. So that is your input box, and now you want that input box to be that you want that email control which you created on the TypeScript class to map to this input box. Okay, so for that, what will you do? You will use something like property binding, okay, and F small form C capital form control equal to, what is the name? Email. So take email from here and put it here. So here would say input, that is HTML, type text, that is HTML. Then only you are using property binding to bind this input control with this object, this variable of your component class. Pretty simple, right? Now I can go here and say that, hey, show me value of, so let's say that you want to see the value of that. So we'll say that, hey, show me value of email dot value and JSON. So this JSON is also a pipe which converts everything in a JSON, right? So here we are, file save, and then come back here. So if I can see you my screen, here I'm saying login form, and let's say, you see I'm entering that in that input control, and that is going to that form, that email control. So here we are saying Ahmedabad, we are getting Ahmedabad, and you can see that that form control is by default two-way data binding enabled. That is why when you are changing something in it, it is it is a property binding right now. So it is whatever you are entering here, that is getting stored in that email variable. All right, and you are getting that. Next, let's go here, and if you see my Visual Studio Code again, my friend. So here, let's go and put some validation. So we would say that, okay, null is the first parameter, and then let's say that you are putting second validation. So you see that validator options, validator function, this is an array. So you need to pass that in array. So here I have put an array, and I'm saying validators dot. So Angular has given you many default validators like default pipes or default structure directives such that ng for, ng if, which is on your disclosure to use at is. So here I can say that, hey, this is required. So here I'm saying that this dot email new form control null, and this control is required, means this cannot be left empty. So here I have put null and then validators dot required. Then I'm back to app component.html. Okay, and let's run it again. You can see my screen in the browser, and here I'm saying Dhananjay, that is working perfectly fine. Now let's go back to code again. And in the code, I'll say email dot state, I guess state, JSON. File save. Okay, you are able to see my Visual Studio Code?
Yes.
Not email dot state, email dot is valid, I guess. email dot value, email dot is value is not there. Just a minute. Huh? Oh, email dot status. So I guess it is status. So file and save. Okay, so now here, if you see the browser window, so you are able to see browser window.
Yes.
Okay, so in the browser window, you see that it says invalid because right now we have put a validation that particular field is a required field and we do not have any data in it. And that is why Angular is giving you that status of that particular control is invalid control. And as soon as I start writing here, you see on the screen that status of that control has been changed from invalid to valid. And if you notice, my friend, each one of you in turns, please focus it here, that how powerful it is. We are not writing any extra code. We just created one line of code in the component class. We just created one object called email equal to new form control and passed two parameters in it. One is null parameter because we do not have any initial value. And then one validation that this field is a required field. We have just done that and 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 then we map that to a HTML control using property binding form control. That is it. We have done only that, and you see that how powerful is Angular reactive forms, that whatever you are doing it here, it is telling you that whether that form is valid, that form is not valid, and everything. See, as soon as it becomes invalid, it is notifying you. Can you see that on the screen, invalid? As soon as you start writing, it is notifying you that, hey, it has become valid. And this is the power of reactive forms. And that is why people prefer reactive forms. And this kind of powerful forms you do not have in React. You know React.js, and that is the reason you can have, and for that you need to use third-party libraries and third-party things. Here it is part of your framework, and that is the reason Angular is most popular among the enterprises to create applications. All your enterprise applications are created in Angular. How many of you use Indian Railway website? Have you ever used Indian Railway website to book ticket?
Yes.
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 So that website is created in Angular. Okay, so this is how you bind one control using the form control. Of course, your application is going to have more than one control. Your form is going to have more than one control. So let us see how they are mapped together. So the first thing is form control, everyone. And in the form control, how you can find the status of that. So in the form control, so a control is, I have already written there, and then you can take control, you can map a control to an object on the class. Let me save it. Okay. You can map a control to an object on a class using the property binding. What was that? Form control. You can check value by form control dot value, and you can check status by form control dot status. Okay, and that is on the HTML only. Of course, in the component class, there's a different way to do that. So, any question on form control, everyone? Any question on form? Any question on form control?
Yeah, so let's say if we have multiple validations, then can I know that what particular validation is failed?
If you have a yes, we can. I'll show you in a bit. Okay. Next question. Okay, so now let us see that, of course, your application is not going to have your forms are not going to have only one control. It is going to have multiple controls. Let us take the same example of login form. So how we can combine multiple controls together to create a form, I'm going to show you next that. So here in my Visual Studio Code, I'm back. You should able to see my Visual Studio Code now, right? Okay. So you are able to see my Visual Studio Code, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So here we can say, so this email is okay. Let's get rid of that. Let us get rid of this email. And now one control is mapped to one form control. In the same way, a group of control is called form, and that is mapped to a class called form group. All right. So here, let's say that we want to create a form group called login. So we'll say login form, and type of that is form group. So again, this form group is part of Angular/form. So you got to import that. Here I'm saying that login form is type of form group. And then in the constructor, I can say this dot login form is equal to, and it takes an object. And here it says that this dot login form is missing the following properties type form group controls. Okay. And here you need to say new. Okay. So here we would say has email. So email equal to new form control. Then it may have new form control. Then it may have password. And we actually does not need this. So login form.
New form group.
Yes. Thank you. So it will be new form group. Then email is equal to new form control. Then let's say password is equal to new form control. So here we have created one form which has two controls. One is email control and another is password control. And as of now, let's not put any validation to that. Let's see that how it works. So you remember that we mapped one control to one control from class to the template. So we mapped one to one. So one email control could be mapped to one input text box. One password control could be mapped to one input text box. In the same way, you can map one form group to a form on HTML. So HTML has a form element, and you can map that form element to form group from the Angular. So how we can do that? Let's go to app.component.html and let's get rid of whatever is here. And here we would create a form. So we would say that, hey, I have a form here. And inside that form, I'm going to have input type, two input type. Okay. So this input is, let's say, placeholder, enter username, and the same way for another input, you have a placeholder and we're saying enter password. Okay, enter password. So this is your HTML form. And the advantage of reactive form is that your designer does not have any dependency on Angular code. They can just go and create HTML and CSS and give it to you, and they'll give you something like this, and then you just have to map those control with your Angular objects. So that is another advantage of reactive forms, because your HTML has very little Angular code, and since it has very little Angular code, it is easier to work with the designer team. All right, so let's say that our designer has given this to us and we want to map this to the form group which we created in the component class right now. So for that, what we'll do, again, we'll use a property binding on the form, and that is called form group. And here a form is mapped to a form group. So your form group name is login form. So we would say form group and put it here login form. And we'll say that, hey, we are going to put our own validations, so don't use HTML validations. And you can achieve that by putting no validate. So here I'm saying no validate. And then here we can say input and type is equal to text. In the same way, again, here we can say type equal to text, or you can say type equal to password if you wish to. And once that is done, now you need to map. So once a control is inside a form group, you only need to perform property binding at the group level. You only need to do property binding on the form level. So here in line number 3, what I have done, that I have used form control form group, and I have mapped it to login form, which is a form group object. However, for these individual components, I do not need to do property binding. I just need to set their property, like how I set in HTML. So here I'll say just form control, and that form control is email. And this is another form control, and that form control is mapped to my password field. And if you look at here in app.component.ts, this email and this password are part, these are individual form controls, but they are part of form group login. On the HTML, on the TypeScript, you can see that. And on the HTML, you see that they are again part of the form group login form. So you need to say form control name, my bad. And then here also you say form control name. So form control name email, form control name password, and say file save. And then also we can print that thing. So the way you printed printed value and status of individual control, in the same way you can enter value and status of the form group. So here we would say login form dot value is, and then they're printing the JSON and login form dot status. All right, so let's see that how it looks in the output. So here you say that it says that enter username and enter password. Are you able to see my browser, the Chrome browser?
Yes.
All right, so here it tells you that initially the value of email is null, the value of password is null. And since we have not put any validation, it is a valid form, right? And here I can start writing Dhananjay. So here you see that email has been changed to Dhananjay, and I can start writing password. So the password has been changed to password, whatever you are entering, and the form is still valid. So making sense, everyone? Again, a control,
Yes.
an individual control is not useful. You need to make a control as part of a group. So on HTML, a form is represented by form element, and on TypeScript class, that form element is represented by object of form group. That is clear, everyone? Then an individual control is mapped by an object of form control. So here, if you look at the code again, so here we created a form. In the constructor, just 2 lines of code. The form control is email and password, and the form is login form. And then we are mapping that in app.component.html, where form group is set to login form, and then form control name are set to individual email and password. All right, now let us go ahead and put some validation in it. So far, so good. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Everyone, in terms?
No.
All right, then let us move forward, okay? Now, of course, you need to submit a form, right? Like a form is not useful if you are not able to get that data in the class and then pass it to the server and so on. So for that, we can go and put a button. So here what I'm going to do in my component class, and I hope you are able to see Visual Studio Code. And here we say button, and let's say class VTN BTN danger. So this is a button, and we'll say login. All right, so button class BTN danger login. And what we are going to do, we need to, on click of this button, we need to submit this form to the component class and then further wherever we wish to. So here I have put a button, button default login, and then what I can do, I can use here something called, on the form I can use event binding called ng submit. So I'm saying ng submit, and on this you want to submit a function called, you want to call a function called login user. So here I'm doing event binding submit, ng submit, and then I have created a function called login user. And then in that function, let's go and create this function login user. So let's take this from here and go to component.ts. And here we can say login user, okay? And then you can say console.log this dot login user dot value. Okay, so this dot login user dot value should be able to give us a value, and this is not login user, this is login form, sorry. So this dot login form dot value would give you value of that form. And in the same way, you can say console dot log this dot login form dot status would tell you whether that particular form is invalid or that particular form is valid. All right, so let's go and do that. And from here, now I can go and read of this, what I was displaying that in HTML. So file save, and if you can see my browser. So here's my browser. I'm saying Dhananjay, and then I'm saying password. Then I'm pressing F12 so that we can see the console. And here I'm saying login. And you see that I'm getting email Dhananjay, password Dhananjay in an object, and this form is valid. I'll go and change it to, let's say, Mahendra login. You see I have that updated Mahendra. If I go and change it to Park, I have updated Park. If I go and change it to Gunjan, I have updated Gunjan. Everything you want to put, you can change to Rusty. Here you have Rusty. You know, so you are getting that updated value. And if you look at this code, my friend, so in Visual Studio Code, you can see my screen that I have done nothing. I just created an HTML. Those are my controls, so I have to create that. In the component class, I created a login form, okay, and then a function which is going to handle that. So from here, of course, you can make an API call, pass this user information to the server, add user, and do whatever you want to do. But see, you don't have any complex code. It is not at all complex. It's very simple, just few lines of code, and boom, you have a form ready in front of you. So here I'll give you 2 minutes time to look into this code and ask me if you have any question. So we have created a basic form, and I'm open for questions before I go further.
Excuse me.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Will you scroll up a bit? All right, thank you.
No questions? Interns, are you able to get it completely? Interns? I'm not able to hear you. You able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so please look into this code and tell me how you find it. All right, so now let us move to the next topic. So far, we have not put any validation in the form, right? The form is pretty straightforward. There's no validation. Now, let's say that our manager is back and he wants us to put some validation. The validation says that email should be the required field, that password should not be more than 16 characters, should not be less than 8 characters, and those kind of validations. So if you got to do that, you need to put that validation right here in the form control. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to say here that, hey, let's say that initial value is null. And then again, here we say validation, validators dot required. So we are saying that email field is a required field. So if email field is not provided, if user is not providing the value for email field, it is an invalid form, and you are going to get, so you're not going to get an error. Keep in mind, it's not that you are going to get some error that your application is stuck and your application is not moving forward. You will get the value of that status, which we are printing in line number 25, as invalid. And on basis of that value, if you wish to write some code, if you want to do something, you can do that. All right. So an invalid form is not an error value. It's just another information. So it's an invalid form, it's a valid form. Now you do as a programmer what you wish to do. So don't expect that, hey, if user has not entered a value in a required field, my application is going to stuck and we are going to get that global error handling or the default error handling, and those in the console, we are going to get those information. No, it doesn't happen like that. All right. So even an invalid state is a value. Am I making sense here, everyone?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So here I'm saying that this email control is required, and for say that this is also null, and the value of this is validators dot, let's say, minimum length, and we want our password minimum length to be 4, right? The password should not be less than 4 characters. So we have put that validation. And again, you see that I have done nothing in HTML. My HTML is just as it is. The maximum thing what I have done in my HTML is used one property binding, has used one event binding. Other than that, in line number 3, there's nothing of Angular. So whoever is the designing my page, my designing team, can design the whole page and send it to me, having no Angular code inside that. At max, they may have to use in form control name from line number 4 and line number 5. And of course, that is easy to use. They know this is a control, and they'll send it to you. You just map that with correct property, correct form control, correct form group objects property, and boom. So that's the main advantage of reactive form, that all the Angular code is happening in the TypeScript class. So you have a granular level of control on your code. The second advantage is that you can write unit test against that. So for example, if you're creating a template driven form and the email field is a required field, how you are going to test it? Because everything is in the template, so you need to do some UI testing and all those kind of things to do that. However, if you're doing that reactive forms, that code is right sitting in your component class. That does mean that if you wish to, or if you need to, you can write a unit test and validate even without running the application that whether your logic is correct or not. Am I making sense? What is the advantage of reactive forms, everyone? Yes, no?
Yes.
I just hear 1 yes. You need to be very attentive. This is
Yes.
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 All right. See, if you don't understand today, Monday is going to be killer. Monday is going to be very tough. I mean, that topic is not directly related to this topic. It's change detection. You remember on the first day when I was talking, I used the word on push. You remember that? And on Monday, we are going to learn that. So that 4 hours is going to blow your mind. Today is the easy topic. So be very attentive. And this is a topic you are going to use on a very first day of your Angular project. Your manager would come to you and ask you to create a form. All right. So here we have put some validations, and let us see that what is the behavior of that now. So here I am, and if you can see my browser. All right, so here enter username, enter password. I'll go and press F12, and I'm clicking login. So see, when I click login, it says email is null, password is nil. And can you see the status of my form? What is that? What is the status of my form?
Invalid.
Invalid.
Invalid. Now here I am going and providing some value, and then here I am providing some value. Let's say password, login. Now the status of my form is valid. However, if you remember here, if I put just 2, means your password should be minimum of 4 character. I'm giving only 2 character. I'm pressing on login. You see that again we are getting invalid. Means your form is invalid. So this is how easy it is to handle validation, to work with that. Now let us say that there's a requirement, and the requirement is that if form is not valid, this login button should be disabled. Right? We come across those kind of requirements that if form is not valid, that button should be disabled. When form is valid, then only the button should be enabled and all those kind of things. So let us see how we can achieve that. But before that, let me go and add a bootstrap CDN. And let me show you that if you have to show the validation error message to the user on the HTML, then how would you do that? So I'm going to show you first next that, and then we'll make that button disabled on basis of form's state, and then we'll move forward. All right, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so just give me a moment. Let me go and let me just pull that. So here, welcome. Then where is this in this HTML? And can you tell me what you are able to see on the screen?
Browser.
Okay, no problem. So here it is. It looks good. Okay, all right. So let me know when you are able to see Visual Studio Code. Okay, so in Visual Studio Code, what I'm going to do, going to app.company.html and putting some class here. So let's call this form as class form, and then call these things as class form control. Call this also class form control. And this login also, let it be. Let's see that how our output looks now. Okay, and then I'm going to put this in a div class row. And then I'm going to put all these things in div class container. And inside container, there's a login forms. So let's take that. Okay, and then put some HR here. And then let's put our div class row, which I have created it here. And then in div class row, we will say div class column md2. There's nothing in it. Then there's column md2, and then we'll say div class 8 to 10 to 12. So here it would be 8. And I'm sorry, my my HTML is, my CSS is very bad. Okay, so here I am, file and save. Now you are able to see my browser. Not, I know you are not able to see that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put some BR here. I'm going to put some BR here. Okay, so now our browsers should look a little bit okay if you are able to see that. So here is the login form, looks much better. All right. So now what is our requirement? What we are going to achieve? Can someone tell me?
We need to show the validation error message to user in HTML.
And yes, and what was the second requirement?
Disable the login button until the form is valid.
Perfect. So let's do that. Okay. So here in our code I am, and so we have added a validator, and here let's say that add one more validator to app.ts, not only the validators dot. So let's say that validator dot max length
Can you share that VS Code?
Thank you. Okay, so here I'm adding one more validator. So validators dot required, and then validators dot max length for password, and for email only validators dot required. Now come to app.component.html, and here we want to display some error message to the user that if email is required, email is not required, and those kind of thing, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a div, a validation or a error div in the HTML, and let's go to here, right here in the email, and then put this. So here what I'm doing, so you see that in line number 14, I have created a div, and that div is of type alert danger. So that is simple. Then I'm using a structured directive to find out whether I need to display that div or not. Okay, so star ng if, line number 16. In that, I'm reading the login forms. So login form is the name of your form. Then using the get method, and because login form can have multiple controls, so you need to find out for which control you are working on. So I'm using login form dot get, and inside get method we are passing the name of the control. So here name of the control is email, and then I'm checking that whether this control has error required. So someone asked me that if you have multiple error, how you are going to find out that which error is causing problems. So in this way, in the hash error method, you can pass information about the error. Is it clear? So here I'm saying that, hey, if login form has required error, and if login form is touched, because you do not want to display that error until it is not once touched. So I'm checking for the both flag. First, whether it has the required error, and second, whether it is touched. If both are true, then we are displaying that error there that, hey, email is required. Okay. And in the same way, what we can do for the div, for the password div. So if you go to this, and here for the password, you can say same that here. So here what I'm saying for the password again, that login form. Oh, I have copied the same thing. Wait. For the password, we need to do the password thing. So go here and put it the password here. So here I'm saying that here, if login form dot get password is not valid, so here we are checking for the whole, then login form that get email is touched. So there are two ways you can check that, and we are saying that password is required and should less than 8 characters. So save and let me know if you are able to see my error. Okay, so one thing what we need to do is here our form name is login form. So take this login form from here and say login form dot get, sorry, login form dot get, and then login form dot get, and it has a field email. So make sure that you are passing that. It has email and it has login form. Okay, so login form and email is correct, is checked. Then again login form and password and login form dot get. It should be again password. Okay, so less than 8 characters. So once those things are done, one thing you can do in app.company.ts, you can say that the value initially is some value. So let's say that instead of null, we are saying that initially some value. All right, so file and save, and let's see that what we are getting. So it has some error. Can you see my screen? Browser?
No.
Now it should be able to. So it has some template error. Let us read that. What is a template error? It says that error occurs in the template of component app component, and it is giving us that object is possibly null. So login form.get email has error required and login form.get email does. So it is having some problem with HTML. Let me see how we can fix it. So here, if we go to app component.html, login form.get email has error.
Can you set
Here.
the VS code?
Okay, so login form.get, let us confirm again, it is login form. Okay, what if I put it? Control Z. You able to see my Visual Studio Code?
Yes.
Okay, all right. We are missing somewhere the name. Okay, so here it is.
I think in HTML, do we need to define some template reference variable in form tag, or is it okay?
Yeah. You are absolutely correct, my friend. You are absolutely correct. So here it would be, and I was completely missing that. I guess we need to do that. No validate class form. So we have already done, but form group, right? Form group login form. It would do, but let's say that login form, if it saves our problem, save. No, that is not done. Just give me a moment. I might have imported something else, reactive forms module, reactive forms module. You are able to see my browser, right? So let's see that here. Let us put this password to comment as of now and see whether we are able to get this. So email in login form, ng submit form login form dot get is, so here we are saying login form dot get has error, email is required, and then again login form dot get email touched, save. And then what I'm going to do, sometimes when you run it again, it works. ng serve. We must be missing some control name or something there, but you are getting the idea, right? The whole idea is that you have that status, the valid status, and everything available to you on the available to you right there on the in the template. So object is possibly null. Can we? So it's 10:24. Let us take 6 minutes break. We should be back at 10:30. Okay. And in meantime, I would fix this error. So let us be back at 10:30. Okay, everyone? Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
10:30. 10:30. I'll see you at 10:30.
I think we need to check that if there are any errors initially, and then after we can check among of those errors if that is
No, no,
required error.
no. No, my friend. I mean, we will do that as you are saying that, but this is what must have changed something in that. Uh, I'll just give me a moment. At 10:30, by 10:30, it would be done. This is the thing which they do in the version by version by version, and that is the problem they have. They keep checking. They keep what to say. Okay, so it is fixed. We'll start at 10:30. Okay, everyone. Let's take 5 more minutes break. We'll start at 10:35. Everyone. Let me put a 10:35. We are starting. All right, so everyone back? Should we start?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what we have done so far, we have created a form group and calling it as a login form. Then we have created two form control, and those form control has two validations, like email has required and password has maximum length and required. Now to use that on HTML, here we are using for the, we are binding this form with form group property and setting login form. Then for each control, we are setting form control name to that control. So far so good. Now we need to display that error message, that if there is some error in the control, we want to display that on the HTML. So for that, here I'm saying that, hey, div class alert danger, and then show this class only if login form email, and then I had to use this nullable because that is of the type nullable, has the required error, and this login form dot get is touched. So show this error message. So this error div when that email control of login form has required error, and if that control has been touched. If those two conditions are true, then only display this div. So we have put it that file save, And then let's go and see the output. So if you can see my screen here, I'm going and saying Dhananjay. Here I'm going to send password. Okay, pressing F12, everything looks good. I click on login button and here you are getting email Dhananjay password and valid. Now I go and change this to Dhananjay and see, as soon as I'm not typing something, I'm back here, it is giving you that email is required. And when you click on login, it is saying there's no value in email, password is this, and it is telling you that the form is invalid form. As soon as you start writing something in that, again login, you are getting here email and password, but this is an invalid form because password is invalid. So if you put password valid, then it would get the valid password. So let's go back and uncomment the password validation. So here in the Visual Studio Code, let's uncomment that. And only thing you need to do is put a question mark here and then put a question mark here. So we have put a error message for password as well. So file, save, then back to the output, and here I'll send here, and you can see that. Okay, so here you see that now enter username, enter password, enter username, you are getting that error, enter password, and then you are going away, you are getting password is required, it should be less than 8 character. So as soon as you start writing and it is more than 8 character, you are getting that error message, it is 8 character. And if you put email, it is gone. If you remove this, it is gone, and then login. So here you are able to see here you are able to show the error message, that is perfect, but still you are able to submit the form. That email is empty and password is more than 8 character and the form is invalid. So let's say that we want to do something such that if form is invalid, then this login button should be disabled. Okay, so far so good, everyone. Before we go to the next requirement.
Yes.
I'll open this code for you. If you have any question, you can ask before I go and make that button disabled.
I have one question that if our form have more than one button, and we haven't mentioned button type in that this is submit button. So on every click, it will call ng submit.
No, it will click in if you have not explicitly mentioned ng. See, if you have more than one button, okay. So there are 2-3 ways you can work with that. First is that you specify which button is submit button by specifying that type.
Right, yeah.
But you may do one thing that you can have more than one type. I mean, more than one buttons in that case. So in that case, don't rely on ng submit, okay, and do just click binding here.
Yeah.
So that is one way. Second is that if you are using ng submit and if you have multiple button, then it will take the ng submit will work on the first button.
Okay.
See, this is a simple form, so we have one button and ng submit. But in complex form, you don't use ng submit. You just submit the form on the click event here, and then call this function login user. It will work exactly same. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Any more question? Any more question, anyone? Okay, so our next requirement is to make this button disabled if form is not valid. And how we would do that? You are able to see my browser, everyone? Sorry, not browser, Visual Studio Code, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so to make that as, so here you would say that this button is disabled. Okay, so we'll say this button is disabled when login form is not valid. I guess this should work. If login form is, instead of that, we can say login form is invalid. If login form is invalid, then this button should be disabled. Pretty simple. So file, save, and if I can show you the output again, right now the form is invalid, so the button is disabled. If I press F12, nothing is happening. And then I say Dhananjay, still button is disabled because password is required field, nothing is happening. I put this, see login, it is working, button is enabled. And as soon as I make it invalid, button has disabled, is disabled, and you are getting that message as well. Button has become enabled, and so on. Okay, so now you know so far that how easy it is to work with forms. It's just a matter of knowing some syntaxes. Okay, if you have any question on valid invalid, ask me before I go to the next topic. No questions? Should we move to next topic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So next what I'm going to show you. Next, let us see this code, app.company.ts. And in this constructor, just focus on code number 14 to 17. Do you think we can make that code a little bit better? And if you think we can make that code better, how you think we can make that code better? The problem with this code is if you look at line number 15 and line number 16, that we are using that new keyword and form control keyword, right? Now, if you have like 100 of controls, then 100 times you are using that new keyword. And the second thing is that, let's say in line number 14, if you look at here, this is an object, right? Like you are passing an object to form group to create a class, but looking at the line number 15 and line number 16, those are not that doesn't look like a real object because there is a keyword there, new. So let us say that tomorrow, if you need to create a reactive forms on an object which is coming from the server, so in that case, what would happen? You would not able to create that because or if you have to use that JSON object to create reactive forms, you need to make sure that object has this syntax, like it has this new form control, it has this new keyword. Otherwise, you would not able to create that, right? So Angular has come up with a service. Now you know what is a service. Angular has come up with a service that helps you to create a form group the way you have created it here, but with simplified code. The code would be much simpler. However, that form builder code, that service code would also get converted to the same type of code internally. So it is not that is better or something. It's just a shorter way of creating the form groups. So in Angular, you can create form controls in a shorter way using an Angular service called form builder. And let's see that how you can work with form builder. So here, to work with form builder, very first what you need to do, from the Angular forms, you can download form builder. You can import form builder, and then you know that to work with a service, what you do, private, you need to inject that. To work with a service, what first thing you do? Tell me. You inject that, right, everyone?
Yes.
So we'll say private FB form builder. So here we have done that. let us comment this code as of now, and then go to the ng on init and say, so here you have injected form builder, and then here you can say this dot login form equal to this dot fb dot group. So it takes, so the angular form builder service group method returns a form group. So here you see that it returns a form group, and then it takes a controls configuration. And that configuration is an object in a key value pair, where key is a string and value could be anything. So advantage of that is that if tomorrow you got to create a reactive form from a JavaScript from a JSON object, and that JSON object can come from the server, that can come from anywhere, you can very easily create that. So here we'll say this dot fb dot group, and we would create the same, we will create the same form which we created there. So here we are saying group, and then take this email. Okay, and here email would be an array. So the first parameter is, let's say, null, and then again we can pass here the same what you are passing, validators dot required. So we are passing validators dot required, comma, and then again password, same password. Okay, and then again null, and from here you can copy the validator. So we have copied it from here, and we are saying null.validator. Okay, so now what we have done, we have created a form using form builder. So to work with form builder, we first have to import it, then we have to inject it, and then we are calling this .fb.group option, and then same like here you have email and password. So we are saying email, and it takes a key value pair as the input. So here the value is, the email is the key, and value is this array where this null is the initial parameter like this, and then the validators as you have put it in the top. Then password, null, validators required, validator maximum length. Now, if you look at here, it looks much simpler code, and doesn't have this new form control and those kind of thing, and very close to a configuration file. So here I have modified creating that login form from new form group to using a form builder. Let's say nothing has to be changed in the template. Template would be exactly the same. So template doesn't know how, if you have used form builder or if you have used form group class to create forms, because as I told you that internally, even if you are using form builder, this code will get converted to this kind of code to create the forms. And now if you go and save it, you should able to get exactly the same output as you were getting before. So enter username, enter password, login. Here you are getting invalid form, not working. If you provide it, if you delete it, provide it, working. So you saw that using form builder, you can, so the purpose of form builder is only to simplify your code creation. Okay, so.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in constructor, we have used private FB form builder. Then how we can use that same variable in ng on init? We have not declared any class level variable for the same, and we are not initializing. It is just passed as a parameter to constructor, and though we are using it in ng on init method, how it is accessible?
You remember I told you this is the syntax for DI container in Angular?
Yes, that is about form
builder.
So
how that is about form builder. Yeah, go ahead, complete your question.
We have used at line number 21 this.fb. So basically that FB should be in class scope, right?
For if you are using, what is the meaning of this line? Tell me.
The container,
line number
the
30.
dependency,
line number 30.
container would, yes, it would inject form builder to the constructor of app component, and that that variable would be just for within the scope of constructor or at the class level, that FB.
It is
or
at the class. It is at a class level. That is why you are able to access that anywhere, right? Outside that constructor also. So when you follow that syntax to inject a service, what Angular DI container does, it creates an object, or it does not create an object depending on the provider setting. But that reference is accessible in the whole class. So you are not injecting something to the constructor. That is just a syntax, because then there is no use of injecting, right? That is the syntax. By that, Angular assumes that Angular has to inject that dependency in this component class, and that dependency is then accessible in throughout the class.
okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the answer?
Yes, but I was having doubt, like C sharp, will it not make something behind the hood, like it will create variable, some private variable within the class scope, and then it itself, while transpiling, it will initialize to that local variable within the class, and while using this .fb, it might be pointing to that same variable which during time transpilation it has created, but I might be wrong.
Very good. Thank you for asking this question.
Yes.
What is your name?
Jainik.
Janik. And for everyone else in the class, you know what is the first step of learning? Everyone, do you know what is first step of learning? The first step of learning is unlearning. So how C# works, Angular has nothing to do with that. Step one. But yes, it is okay if you are mapping your C# learning to Angular and thinking that visualizing that it should happen like that because it is happening like that in a particular language. That is okay. But these are two entirely different things. The way maybe scoping and the way maybe data encapsulation works in C# may not work in TypeScript, or for that matter, JavaScript. So the scoping in TypeScript or scoping in JavaScript, so there's nothing called TypeScript. Scoping in JavaScript could be entirely different than scoping in C#. So how C# works, forget about that as of now. Here in TypeScript, which is eventually JavaScript, you have different level of scope in a module, in a file. So here in JavaScript, you have global scoping, you have function scoping, you have lexical scoping, and now you have block level scoping using let and all that. So this is your information number one, that scoping are not entirely same in JavaScript and C#, and JavaScript doesn't have actually private or public or anything for that matter. Now, what Angular does internally to make sure that AB is available throughout the class, we don't know what it does internally. But what we know here as an Angular engineer is that when we follow the syntax of line number 30, whenever we follow that syntax with a service name, it means we tell Angular that, hey, I have dependency of form builder in app component class. Can you inject object of form builder in app component class? That is what line number 13 means. Clear so far? So when it is but obvious that if Angular will inject dependency of something in app component, it would make sure that something is available throughout the app component. Otherwise, what is the point of injecting that? So what you see in line number 13 is the syntax actually telling Angular that I inject something which is visible throughout the app component. So don't get confused that I'm declaring this variable in constructors, then this FB should be only inside this and that. No, it is not true. Is it clear, Janik?
Yes, yes.
All right. Any more question?
No.
Other people, interns, do you have any more further questions? So let us move to the next topic.
Dhananjay, one question, Mahendra here.
Yeah, Mahendra.
Yeah, so you change from above constructor level login form declaration to the init level, the form builder declaration, right? You're trying to achieve, like, you can pass the same object to the service.
No. So let us say it may happen that sometimes the configuration of your form is saved on the server. When I say configuration, it means this object, line number 21 to line number 24. Okay.
Yep.
So you need to bring that from the, so if right now I move this code from ng on init to constructor, it will work perfectly fine. There's no problem in it.
Correct.
But I wanted to show the best practices that it may happen that you are bringing this object from that API, from the server. It means using the API. So in that case, this code should be inside ng on init as best practices says.
When you share bringing from the server, that means you to default some values.
What do you mean by default some values?
I'm trying to relate the
So let us
statement.
say, so what I'm saying that let us assume that I have, so let us assume here that I have an login form config. Let login form config equal to okay, right now it is hard coded, but it may happen that this is coming from the API. Of course, it may have some value here also. So it may have an email already dhananjay.kumar@abc.com. It can have a initial password if there. So here am I hard coding it, but it can come from the API, means using the service. In that case, I can dig this gentleman and I can say login from config. So you see that now this object is pretty much configurable for me from anywhere. That's what I meant actually.
Okay.
And here this data, I'm again hard coding it. It could have initial data. So you could have a type, user type, and then user.email, user.password and all.
Yeah.
So the power of reactive form is this, what is in front of you. That is very highly configurable. And if you look at the HTML here, this HTML, other than a little bit of ng if and all, there's nothing of Angular. It's pure HTML. So your designer team can work on this, give it to you. Then your Angular code is already written and unit tested that, okay, for that particular form required is working or not. So you have verified that by writing the unit test. So your form is ready by designing team. Your control is component is ready because unit test and everything is passed on that. So only you are mapping it here and you are good to go. But if you are using template event form, all this code, what you see here, this fb.group and all would not be here. Your component would look very, very clean, but you will have a lot of code right here. Okay. And again, in beginning, as I said, that like in some of the blog and some of articles, you may read that template event form is better than reactive form or reactive form is better than template event form. But that is not true. It's purely your requirement, what you need. Why people prefer reactive forms most? Because in most of the project, designing team is different. So you don't want to stuck if designing team is not, designers are not ready with the control and all. So you can just go and say that, let's say there's an Angular engineer, you can tell them that, hey, can you go and create a login form, and the configuration should come from the server. So in that case, that engineer can go write a service, do a HTTP GET operation on the server, bring the data, bring the configuration, which is line number 23, create a login form, do a unit testing, and say that, hey, this class is ready, just now matter of binding with the design. And that is the reason reactive form is getting more and more popular.
They can work
But
independently. Yep.
yeah, but if you use third-party controls such that infragistics controls or Telluric controls, or even Angular materials, right? It would be bit complex to integrate them with reactive forms, because they expect all the data in their property controls property. So you have to see that.
Okay.
I mean, those third-party controls or even Angular materials, they are built on keeping template-driven forms in the mind.
Okay.
All right. So the class, and I'm going to ask these questions to interns. And today it is easy day for you. Monday is going to be very tough. So today you should be like 100% understanding everything, no concept, only some syntaxes. Okay. So you should be very confident about today. Now control, if you have to create a control, that is mapped to which class? Any intern can unmute and tell me.
Form control.
Form control. Then if I have a form, that is mapped by which class?
Form group.
The other person, not the same person. Other intern? Anyone? Or then I'll have to choose your name. Nidhi, can you say form is backed by which control? Which class?
Form group.
Form group.
Form group.
Okay. And then what is the purpose of form? What is the purpose of form builder? Prijes, can you tell me that? When should you use form builder?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is by default one kind of a service. It provides us to implement the form using that form builder service.
So
So
when
we
should
can
you
inject particular service in our constructor.
So when should you use form builder, and
Okay,
when
sir.
should you use form
Whenever
builder?
we don't.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Whenever we don't want to use the implement like a new form control, then we can using a form builder. We can directly implement the form.
Perfect answer. Okay. Now, in Jan, you got to tell me what are the 3 parameters of form control in Jan. Okay, as soon as I started asking questions, 3% left. That is good. In Jan also left. No, he's here or she's here, but not speaking.
So Nimisha Jain.
Okay. So Nimisa is not speaking. Then I may ask this question to Parth Bodhanwala. Can you tell me what are the 3 controls? Sorry, 3 parameters to form control.
We pass the first initial value like null, then validations.
Initial value, okay. Validations, and what is the third parameter?
Async.
Async validator, right? Now, Raj, can you tell me what is the purpose of async validator? When should you use that? Raj Savalya? Raj?
Hello.
Yeah, Raj.
Yeah, okay. Sync validators.
Give me a real, don't give me the definition. Just tell me the scenario where you can use it.
Like if you have many fields,
Okay, Dhaval, can you answer that? Dhaval?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
When we have to validate the data from the server, means
very good. Got it. Yeah.
Yes.
So like whether username exists in the server or not, in those kind of scenario, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now all of you know reactive forms. There's no more than that. I'm going to cover 2-3 topics more, but this is what all you need to know to work with reactive forms. In reactive form, you have one more class called form array, and I'm going to cover that in a bit. Forms array. So these are only 4 classes: form control, form group, form builder, and forms array. You need to know. Then on the internet, you may find mention of value accessor, set accessor, this and that. Don't get confused with those things. You need only control on these classes and you are good to go. Trust me on that. Unless and until if you are not creating a very extensive forms. When I say very extensive forms, means your like your form has 5,000 fields or something like that. Okay, you may have a scenario when you are creating forms like this, means so let's say that you have something called app user. You are able to see my notepad, everyone, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have app user, then you have, let's say, app login, something like that. So you can have a app user, and inside app user you are using app login. And let's say both are forms, then the form of app login would become form child of app user, and it will follow the same pattern which you have been learning since first day, that how data is being, how event is being propagated from child component to parent component, and so on. Okay. Next topic, what I'm going to teach you is very important. Now, next we are going to learn that so far whatever you have seen is, if you can see the browser, it has name, it has password, that is fine. Now let's say it has one more field called age, and you need to put a validation on the age in such a way that, so there are some default validation provided to us by Angular, such that validators.required, validators.max length, validators.minimum length, and those kind of things. However, you may come across a scenario when building your application that all those default validators which are provided by Angular is not sufficient to meet your business need. Means you got to write your own validator. So when you need to write your own validator, that is called custom validator. And why, in which, what kind of scenario you may write that? So let us take a scenario that on this form, when user is logging or signing up to the application, we are asking user to provide email, we are asking user to provide password, and also we are asking user to provide user's age. And then we need to validate whether age is in between 18 to 40 or not. So there's a range which we need to validate. I have taken a very simple example for that. You, in your application, you may have a complex business scenarios where you need custom validations. So next we are going to learn that how we can write custom validator in Angular reactive forms. Okay, so to do that, so what I'm going to do here, you can see my Visual Studio Code. Okay, you are able to see the Visual Studio Code right now? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here, let us go ahead and add one more field called age, and that is null. Okay, so I added one more field in line number 26, and that is age. And so to map that in app.component.html, we need one more, let's say, input type, so that we can map that age to that input type. And for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say input class form control, and then our form control name would be age. Let's say type is, let's say type text only, and placeholder, enter age. Okay, so we created a control is, we created input box, and then using the form control name, we are mapping that to app.component.ts, and here we added one age field, age property. Sorry, let's go back and see how it looks on the output. But before that, let's put one br here also. Okay, so file and then save, and then we are here. If you can see the output, you have that. See now by default Dhananjay at abc.com coming, because in code when I was answering question of Mahendra, I put an initial value Dhananjay at abc.com. You remember that? So that's the reason you are getting that. So here I'll say password. Let's say password is abcdef. There's some password also. So abcdef, and then let's say age is 34 and login. And you see that here you are getting email and password and the age. So that age control we added in the form control, in the form. Now our requirement is, you have already seen that how you can have validation here. So if you don't put it and you come back, you are getting email is required. If you're passing more than 8 characters, you are getting that error. This login button is disabled and all is already there. Now we have a requirement that our manager is back and saying that, hey, you need to make sure that in this age field, so here user has entered password, user has entered name, and in this age field, users should able to enter age only between, let's say, 18 to 40. If so, the minimum age is 18 and maximum age is 40. And this data can come from the server, so it is configurable from the server and through the API and all. So we are here going to achieve that. So here we know that Angular has not provided us any age. I guess there's some range validator with regular expression, but as of now, ignore that. So let's say that Angular has not provided us any such validator, such that validators.required or validators.max length or validators.min length. Those kind of things cannot be used here. So we got to write our custom validator. Is it clear, everyone? And in that custom validator, we would make sure that this age is in between 18 to 35. Okay, so for that, you are able to see my browser?
Yes.
Okay, now let me go in this and show you Visual Studio Code. And in Visual Studio Code, let us start writing that function. Validator function. So if you look at a form control, let's say that here, I just wanted to show you something. If you look at this new form control, the second parameter is validator options, right? And if you look at the type of that validator options, that is nullable, and it it is applied on an abstract control options, means it can be applied on a type called abstract control, and it returns either a validator function. So see the type validator fn, or it returns an array of validator fn. So the validator function which we are going to create must return either validator fn or array of validator fn, right? Then only it can become a custom validator. So that is one thing we need to keep in mind. The second thing is that it takes an abstract control as or it can return an abstract control, or it can return a null, or it can return an undefined. So the function which we are going to create as a custom validator. Hello, have I lost you? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess just 2-3 seconds back, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Abstract control, yes.
Okay. So what I was saying, that when we create that custom validator function, that validator function is going to return. So that is going to return various validator options that you see in the second parameter. And the type of that would be either validate. So we can return a value of type validator effect. You are able to see my Visual Studio Code, everyone?
Yes.
And my voice is audible, right? So it can return a validator if function, validator if n. It can return a array of validator if n. It can return abstract control options, or null or undefined. So that is one thing you need to keep in mind. So we are here and we would start writing a validator function. And you are able to see my Visual Studio Code that I confirmed, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do, you can put it in any class anywhere. I'm putting in the same class. Okay, you can put it in different class. It is like a pipe, like how you create a function. So I'll say that, hey, I am creating a function called, let's say, my function name is, so here I'm creating a validated function, and let's say my function name is range validator. Okay, and here to start with, let us say return null. So this function is right now a normal JavaScript or TypeScript function. To convert this function as custom validator function, we need to follow the syntax which we just discussed, which is going to return a certain type. And it is going to take a certain input parameter. So the first thing is that it is going to take a certain input parameter. So it will return, it will take an input parameter here of type control abstract control. So now if you look at any control like this form control, if you go to the definition of form control here, let's say A equal to new form control. And if I go to the definition of form control, okay, so here I am in the form control, and you see that form control extends abstract control. So we are passing the type, we are passing the parent type. In inheritance, it works, right? If you have a class called parent, if you have a class called child, you can do parent p equal to new child. So here, what we are doing, we are passing the parent of form control as the input type, because we are going to apply that validator which we are creating on a form control. So here we are passing abstract control as input parameter. Now we need to define that what this is going to return. So this would return an object. So this would return an object, or sorry, this would return an object, or so either it is going to return us an object, or it is going to return us a null. And here in this object, I can say that, hey, return me a key value pair where that value is of type Boolean, because that would say that whether that is a, like the validator is true or false. True means that validation is passed. False means that. So when I say has, false means that there is no validation error, And if that value is true, means there is validation error in that control. So here I'm saying that, hey, either return me null or return me a object where value is of type true, type boolean, but key is of type string. So here what I'm saying that, hey, key is of type string and value is of type boolean. So this is the syntax you need to follow to create a custom validator. First, name of the function, like function keyword, the name of the function. Then you need to make sure that you are passing the input parameter control abstract control. And then you are making sure that either it is returning null, null means it is not applied, or it is returning a key value pair as an object where key is string and value is of type boolean. And now inside this, we can go and write your business logic. So here we can say that if control dot value, so whatever control's value is not equal to undefined, means we have applied this, there is some value in that undefined. If control value is not equal to undefined and is nan, means we are going to, so this is my business logic, okay? We are going to apply that on a number field. So we are checking whether is nan or not. Is nan control dot value. So here we are saying if control dot value is not equal to undefined and if it is not none, if these two conditions are passed, then go to the other condition where we are saying control dot value is if less than 18 or control dot value is greater than, let us say, 45. Okay, control dot value is greater than 45. Then, so here we are saying just wait for the braces. We are saying here if control dot value is not equal to undefined, and then if control dot value is greater than 45.
There are two brackets at the end. It should be one, I think.
I guess we need to put one of them in the braces, I guess. Let us see. Okay, and then here we would say return. Okay, and here your key is string, so age range, that is name of the error, like required max length, min length is true. So here we are saying if control dot value is undefined and then and is nan. Oh, okay, so it should be actually after this we would put a this and then it would go, yeah, because these are one thing. So if it is not undefined and then if it is not nan and if it is less than 18 or if it is greater than 45, return a age range true. Simple logic. Now if you don't understand is nan, if you don't understand undefined, we can do sometimes 2-3 hours on JavaScript. But as of now, is nan function checks whether that value is a number or not. And then control dot value 18, control dot value is greater than 45. So this is what our custom validator is. Again, it is a function. It has a specific signature. The signature is that it takes a control as an input. It takes a control and then you are passing the type of the control is abstract control. Then it returns either null or a key value pair. It can return more than key value pair. So you can put it in a array as well. And then we are saying control that value is undefined, putting our business logic and returning age range true, return null if it is not true. Okay, so save. And now let's see that how we can use that. So to use that, null, and how you are using any validator. So array, and you can say age range validator. the way you are using validators.max length and all. Here I'm saying age range validator, the validator which we have used. Now on the HTML, what you can do, let us see that whether first we are able to run it or not. So in the browser, if I can show you my browser, here's my browser, login button is disabled. But it looks like, see, dhananjay.abc.com is there, password is there, but still login button is disabled. Why? Because we have not provided any value of age. If I provide age 20, you see it has got enabled and you are getting email, password, and age. If I provide age 39, it is enabled. If I pass age 78, it is disabled because our age is between 18 to 35. If I pass 18, it is enabled. If I pass 16, it is disabled. So our custom validator is working fine. Let me go to the code again and let us display some message for that. So we'll display that message here, and how we would do that. So we'll say that right here. You are able to see my Visual Studio Code? Yes. So here I would say enter age, and we would say here that, hey, div class alert danger login form dot get and age property. If it is dirty, then login form that get age property. Errors, if it has error, and if it has age range error, you remember that we created that age range error here. Age range error. So we are checking that if it has age range error, then show the message age should be in between 18 to 45 years. Now let's go and run this. If I can show you the browser window, and there's some error here and the login form, and the error is in the latest version. You need to make sure is, if you can see my browser or see my Visual Studio Code, I need to say login form dot get dot is error. I need to follow that. Okay. So file, then save, and then let's say that if you can see my browser window. So in the browser window, we are still getting that error. It says that login form.get is dirty, login form.get is errors, and login form.get errors range. Object is possibly null or undefined. Okay. I guess one more place I need to do that. And that is maybe this errors guy. Then file, and then save, and then we're back. Okay, so here you see that right now we have dhananjay.abc this. So if you pass here 56, age should be in between 18 to 45 years. If you change it to, let's say, 34, it is working fine, login and all that. So this is the way you can create a custom validator. If you have any question on custom validator, I'm happy to take it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What did you do to mitigate the final error? The can possibly be null thing.
What we can do to mitigate?
I mean,
I just put these question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you already put question marks. Still, it was showing error. Then you did something, but didn't share the screen.
No. I missed it here.
Okay. After error. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So they are making it more and more stricter. This is only in Angular 11 onwards. In Angular 10, you will not get error if you don't have that question marks. You will not get error.
Okay, understood.
So if you read a lot of old blog posts or my ebook, you would not find those question marks in the template. Okay.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. So here is the code. I am going to open this code. Please look at this code, line number 4 to 12, because I'm going to ask some questions on top of that in next 2 minutes. So look at code 4 to 12. Okay, so if you don't have any question, may I ask question?
This is Mahendra.
Yeah.
Where do you put this custom validator?
In a separate
Right.
class, and then so you can do that something like this. So let's say you have a shared folder again,
Shared folder, right? Okay.
and inside a shared folder, let's say I'm saying custom validator dot ts, and then here where I have written that. Yeah, so Control C, and then here Control V. Only you need to make sure that you do export,
Yeah.
and then you import, and then everywhere you can use it with that class name. Like you have to import that class name, and then you can just use that function. Okay.
Yep.
So in this class, in this function, there is something not good. Can someone tell me, any of the intern, what is not good? Look at the line number 5, and don't focus on is nan undefined. Those are good. Don't focus on that. Just focus on what the code I have highlighted. Focus on that and tell me what is wrong in that. In line number 5, what the code I have highlighted, just focus on that and tell me what you think is wrong in that code. Hey, come on. You have done almost, I don't know, today's 6th day, almost 50 hours of 45 hours of Angular training. You can very easily say that. No, not sorry. You have done almost 20 hours of Angular training. I'm sorry. We do 4 hours each day. Yeah.
Comparing number with string, I think, like, with a control store value, maybe a string. Like.
No, that is not correct answer. Answer is much easier than what you people are thinking.
Hello?
Yeah.
It is hard coded, 18 and 45.
Perfect. Perfect. That's the answer. Right now, what I have created, whatever custom validator I have created, is only working with if age is between 18 to 45, right? But in real scenario, I want to create a custom validator that should able to take this value also as input parameter, right? Then only I can use it at the multiple places. Otherwise, this validator is of no use. Why I'm creating it as a reusable function? I can just put that right there, right? So I should be able to pass this value 18 and 45 as well. And whatever I pass, it should work on that. Agree? So it should not be the hard coded, because this 18 and 45 can come from the API that, hey, age should be in between this range. So perfect answer. You are right. So now tell me, what should I do to fix that? Here, let's say I want not 40, I want mean age. And here I want assume something called max age. Now tell me, what should I do that?
We can pass parameter in function directly.
Very good answer, but wrong answer. Because I very explicitly told you that you cannot change this signature. You remember that in the beginning?
Yes.
Only by that signature, Angular is identifying that function as a custom validator. So we cannot change that. If we change that, Angular will not identify as custom validator.
We can take from some configuration.
We can take from that configuration, yeah, but then how would we read that configuration inside it? So in JavaScript, you can have a function inside another function. Okay. So if I show you my screen, Can you see my Sublime text?
Yes.
Yes.
So JavaScript allows you, so let's say that I have this function custom validator, for example, and this function could be inside another function, and that function name is, let's say, ABC. So this function can take anything, and JavaScript works on lexical scoping, means whatever you pass here, ABC, can be used right here. Let's say console.log A. Okay, so here if I pass JavaScript has something called lexical scoping. So here I'm saying that function ABC, then function CB, function log, and let's say that I am calling this CV, and from here if I say ABC, function name is ABC, right? Function ABC, and if I pass 9, 56, and 89, and if I press Control B, see, you are getting 9. So due to lexical scoping, JavaScript can have nested functions, and the inner function has access to the parameters which is being passed to the parent function. So let's say this function is our custom validator function. If we encapsulate that inside an outer function and pass the required parameter in that outer function, then our job would be done. Okay, so let me show you the syntax for that, how you can do that. And here, if you come back and see my syntax, see my Visual Studio Code. So right now you are in my Visual Studio Code. And what I'm going to do, as of now, I will comment this. You are able to see Visual Studio Code, my friend?
Yes.
Yes.
And here I'll say function age range validator. Okay, so here I'm saying function age range validator. And here I'm saying, let's say minimum age, which is number. Then maximum age, which is number. And if you remember, if you remember that the type of validator functions, means the type of this is actually, this is combination of actually validator fn. If you go to forms control, second parameter, you can see the type is validator fn. So from here, if I say that, hey, this is a function, and this function is going to return me of a type validator fn. Okay, so here I'm saying that, hey, return me this function age range validator, return me validator fn. It is telling us that a function that receives a control and synchronously returns a map of validators error represent otherwise null. So we have to return that, and that function was actually this function. So if we take this function from the bottom and put it here and uncomment it, and only instead of this function, if we say return, okay, so we'll say that return, and it cannot have a name now. So here we just remove that, and then we are saying null, and this is a function, right? So here what we have done, here what I have done, that I have created a function called age validator. There I am passing minimum age and maximum age, then that is returning a validator function. So if you look at the validator function, what it says, a function that receives a control and synchronously returns a map of validation error if present, otherwise null, which means that we need to make this syntax. So it takes a parameter this, and this is the mapping here of validator function or null. And so we are getting an anonymous function and returning that, and the same code. Only thing we need to make sure that here this is minimum age, and here this is maximum age. Okay, so once this is here, we can come to our ng on init, and here let's say that we have mean age equal to 65 and max is equal to 80. And of course, this data can come from API. Okay, here we have hard coded it. So here now, if you see that it is asking you to pass minimum age and maximum age, we can say this dot mean age and this dot max age. We can pass that, and then in the app.company.html, instead of 18, we would say with interpolation mean age. Instead of 45, with interpolation, we would say max age. So here age should be in between mean age to max age. And save it. And let us see the output. Now, if you can see my screen, login forms, let me press enter. And if I say here, age should be in between 65 to 85 years. 67 is perfectly fine. 81 is wrong, but 80 is fine. 78 is fine. 35 is wrong. So in this way, you can pass a parameter to your custom validator function. And here, let me open the code again so that if you have any question, I would answer that. Here, I'm putting that. And the code is, where is the code? Code is right here. Line number 4 to line number 13. Here, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to observe this code, ask questions if you have any, before we move to the next topic.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So the default validator has three parameters, and one of them is async. Yes, right?
Come again. The form control had 3 parameters. One of them was async. Yeah.
Yeah, and this validator FN, the interface, can you just hover the mouse on it? Yeah, it says the function that is your control and synchronously returns a map of validator where it present. So can it be async or that kind of thing, or it is synchronously returns?
No, good question. So the form control has 3 parameters. First parameter is your value. Second parameter is validator function, which we are creating this, which is synchronous in the nature. And second parameter is asynchronous validation function. Sorry, third parameter is asynchronous validation function. So you can create an async validator function as well, but that would be passed as the third parameter, which means here, wherever you are using it, so here you see the first parameter is value, second parameter is this one, and then that would go as your third parameter if you create that async valid. Was it your question, or your question was something else?
Yeah, that was. So we have to make an async function for that.
Async validator, yeah. In this course, we are not covering that, how to do that. But as I told you, in those scenarios, you have to create that. Almost the same syntax, little bit complex, but you have to create a function which will return async a validator function and pass as a third parameter.
So in that case, the second parameter was empty, right?
You can have both.
Okay, yeah.
If it is empty, then pass null, right?
Okay, understood.
All 3 parameters are nullable parameter, means you may have them, you may not have them. Okay, so let us go to the next topic. No more questions? Should we move to next topic?
Yes.
Okay. So the next topic is a real-time scenario. We are going to talk and work with that. So let us say, if you are able, when you are able to see my OneNote, let me know, please. OneNote. Can you see my OneNote?
No.
Oh, just a minute. Okay. And interns, focus here. Not much concept, but real-time scenario with reactive forms, how we are going to learn. So focus here, okay? So let us say I'm your manager and I'm back to you. We are sitting in a classroom, sitting in a meeting room, and I'm asking you that, hey, we have a requirement. Our requirement is something like this. So our requirement is that we have to create a form, and our form looks like this. Okay. Our form has email. Then our form has password. Okay. Then it has a field called send notification. Okay. So it has one field called send notification. And the send notification field has two radio button, and that radio button is email and phone number. Okay. And then it has buttons, and buttons are like this. And on the button you have register and cancel. So this is a form we need to create. Okay, everyone. Now the requirement of this form is that email is a required field. Oh, password, and then you have one more text called here. Let's say that you have one more text called phone number also. And you have one more field called phone number. Okay. So here our requirement is we need to create this form, and our requirement is something like this. That email is always required field, password is always required field, and whatever the validation we are working, like max length and mean length and all those. And phone number is not required, not a required field. However, in send notification, when users select the option to send notification through phone number, in that case, user will check this radio button. So if user, for the send notification option, if user has selected that user wants notification through phone number, okay, user wants notification through phone number, in that case, this phone number should become a required field. But if user has selected that user wants notification through email, then phone number should become, phone number is not a required field. But if user has selected that, hey, I want notification through phone number, then this phone number should become a required field. Otherwise, email is required, password is required, register, cancel. This is a form we have to build. Everyone, requirement clear to you?
Yes.
Only one person?
Yes.
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 So you know that this kind of requirement is very often you'd come across. Agree?
Yes.
Yes.
These are kind of real scenario, real requirement we come come across while building application. So how we can achieve that? That is we are going to learn next. So actually in technical term, I would say we are going to achieve conditional validation. That how you can apply a validation on a condition, and this concept is called conditional validation. So when you work with conditional validation in this scenario, we need to actually take care of two steps. Step number one is that whatever user has selected here, we need to know, and user can keep changing. User would click here, user would click there, user would click here, user would click there. So whenever user changes a value in this form, we need to work with that, step one. And step two, on basis of that, we need to either put a validation on phone or we need to remove validation from phone. So here our requirement, if I'm just closing this, here if I, oh, sorry. So here our requirement is, we need to, you are able to see my notepad, right? We need to find out value change on the form, whether user is clicking on email or on password. Pretty clear, everyone? And then on basis of that, apply conditional validation to phone number. So this is our requirement. Let us see how we are going to do that. And this concept is called conditional validations. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code, and you should be able to see my Visual Studio Code now. You are able to see Visual Studio Code?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to here, to keep it simple, let me go and add here. Sorry. Here, let me go and add, it is working fine. Let me go and add one more. We have age here. Let's say that we are going and adding one more phone number kind of thing. Null. Or what I'm going to do, let me just comment this for you for your reference and create a new object such that when you revise this, you have this available for you. So I just commented that such that you have that for you. And here also I would just this row, I would comment such that when you revise, you have that code. I'm going to write fresh code for that. Okay. So here, let me very quickly go and create a form. So here I would go to app.component.ts, and in ng on init, I'd create a new form. I'm calling it this.login form, this.ab group, email, validators required, password null, validators required validators max length, and phone number null. So exactly the same, nothing fancy about it. You created that. Okay, so once you have that, what you can do, you can go and create a form for that. So in app.company.html, I'm saying div class row, and then I have put it here. Okay, so our form should look, it is, should I use the same? Because if you don't mind, can I use the same which we have already on the top? Why to create new? Because that is always the same, right? I'm going to use the same one, okay? Okay, yeah, it is almost the same. Jet, where we created that here and then here. And here I uncommented this. Okay, so file and save. Let me check. A form is back. Okay, so what I'm going to do next. So we right now in our here, let's add one for phone number. So let's first add a control for phone number. So for that, go to app.component.ts, and here we can say phone number, and the phone number is by default going to be null. And then once phone number is added, go to app.company.html, and let's add one field to represent phone number. So here we can say input form control name phone number. It should be exactly the same what is here, which is phone number. Okay, and then form control enter phone number. Here we need to put login form dot get login form dot phone number dot has error, otherwise we would get error. And then login form dot get dot phone number dot test. Okay, so we have just added a phone number field. We are saying phone number is required. Save, and let's see that whether in the screen you can see that we already have that phone number field added now. All right, so if I press F12 here and put some password, put some is here, put some phone number, login, I am able to get that here phone number and everything. Okay, so but right now there is no validation on phone number. I can, if I click on that, still I'm able to get that data here in the object because there's no validation on the phone number. You're able to see my browser. Now let me go back to the component here. So now we cannot put validation here because we need to put that validation on basis of certain conditions. So first create that condition, and to create that condition, what we are going to do, everything looks fine. Okay, so now next what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a new field in it, and here we call that as notific notification, and let's say that initial value of that notification is email. So by default that email is selected. So here I selected notification email. Okay, and on basis of that notification control, we are going to see whether we need to send notification through phone or we need to send notification through email. So here I added notification, and once notification is added, let's go and add a notification, a control for, let us go and add a notification there. So here we would go and say on HTML, let's put one BR here and put this here. So label class send notification, radio inline, email, form control name notification, initial value is email, and then phone, form control name notification, phone. So you see that how you can map a control to radio button or checkbox and all, both would have same form control name. So email and phone. And then if we, and this notification should be exactly the same as this notification, and this should be email. And here we are giving the default value. Text value as email, then we'll see what is the default value here. That is email, and here is a phone. All right, so let's see that in the output, what we are getting so far. So here in the output, we are here, let's press F12, enter age, let's say 68 again, phone number, and then say email, login. Here you are getting, in the console, notification, email, phone number. Then you say phone, login. Here you are getting in the console, notification, phone. So we are able to create a control. Now on basis of this control, if email is selected here, then this password, this phone number should become required. If phone is selected here, this phone number should become required. If email is selected here, this phone number should not be required. So how we can write that code? So for that, let's go to browse to Visual Studio Code. Okay, so let's come back to app.component.ts, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new function to handle that. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a function called form control value changed. Okay, so I have just created a function form control value changed, and I'm going to call this function. Okay, so I'm going to call this function, this form control value changed, from ng on it. So just here first call this dot form control value changed. Okay, now here we will write some code. So first, what we are in our algorithm, we decided that first we need to find out that whether user has selected email or user has selected password. Now here you will see that how powerful is Angular, that just one line of code would tell you which value is selected. If you're not using Angular, you got to write a lot of JavaScript, a lot of HTML, if, else, and all those kind of things. Here it is super easy. And if you focus here, what I'll say that, hey, this dot login form dot get, in login form, get me the notification control. So from here, I'll make sure that I have not done the spelling mistake. So I've taken this notification from here and put it here. Okay. And I'll say that, hey, get me the notification control. And whenever the value of notification control changes, so this is that event emitter. You remember that, which we were doing that in component communication. We're saying that, hey, whenever the value changes, and what is subscribe, I'll cover that in a bit. But as of now, you need to subscribe to the value change. So we say that, hey, subscribe to the value change. Okay, and then here you can say data. And then let's say console.log data. This is just one line of code I have written where I'm saying that get me the notification control, then read the value changes property of that control, and then subscribe to that. And then I'm printing the value here, console.log. So let's see what we are getting here in the output. So here you see that in the browser window, I'm here, I'm pressing F12. And I'm right now saying phone, you are getting phone in the bottom. I'm saying email, you are getting email, phone, email, phone, email, phone, email, phone, email. Can you see that? So just one line of code here is able to get us that what value has been changed. You can apply this to any option here, like on email, on password, on age, on phone number. Here we need our notification. So we are putting it on notification. Now here we need to check that if, okay, so here what we got to change, here we got to change if data is equal to phone, then we need to do something. Or if data is, and you saw that in the data view, you're getting the value either phone or email. If data is equal to email, then let's do something. Okay. Now what we need to do it on what? We need to do it on the phone control. So here, first we'll fetch the phone control. We'll say const phone control is equal to, again, the same, this dot login form dot get. And here you need to pass the phone control name. So that is phone number, and here you can pass it. Okay, so here we are saying that, hey, get the phone number, and if this data is phone, then do phone control dot set validators. Okay, so you can apply that validators after creating the control as well. That is a message here. It says you that you can pass the validator function and all that. So we can take an array here, set validators, and we can say validators dot required. Okay, and if it is an email, then we'll say phone control dot clear validators. Okay, so if it is email, then clear the validators. In the clear validators, you have other option. If you want to clear a certain validator also, you can clear that. So you have clear validators, clear async validators, all those options are here. I'll say clear validators. Okay, and once this set validator or clear validator is applied, we would say that, hey, phone control dot, and here would say update value and validity. So here what I have done, I read the phone control, then I am subscribing to the value change of notification control, and then I'm checking for the data. If data is phone, I'm setting the validator to required. If data is email, I'm clearing the validator. And once that is done, I'm saying that, hey, update value and validity for phone control. Now file and then save. Let's come back to our application here. Output here, sorry, in the output we are here and we are right now here. So we say that email password, enter age is 68, enter phone number. I'm not entering phone number because I've selected email here, pressing F12, and I'm clicking on login. And here in the console, you see that I got email, password, age, and phone number null, notification email. However, I clicked on phone number here and it's telling me that, hey, phone number is required. If I enter phone number, that is gone, and I'm getting here in the console, the value notification phone and phone number is 324. Okay. But if I change it to 324, and if I get rid of this, nothing is happening. I'm able to get the value here. Right, but as soon as I change to phone, I'm getting phone number is required. The login button has been disabled. So in this way, you can apply the validation on a condition. You can read the value change of the control, and so on. So if I'm going to open the code, if you have any question, I would be happy to answer that. Any question? Look at the code, observe it for 2 minutes, and then you can have. Am I audible? Were you able to follow me?
Yes.
I told you it is pretty simple. It's just syntaxes. It is not like dependency injection or change detection that you have to apply a lot of mind, lot of concept. It is simple UI and then control, value change, clear validator, update value and validity, set validators. That's it. But yeah, as an intern, when you go on a project, you would be spending most of the time on creating forms and all those things. Okay. Should we move to the next topic if you don't have any question?
Yes.
Okay, then now I'm going to give you a very small introduction of template driven form if you have to create a very small introduction, and let's see that how you can create the same login form using a template driven form approach. Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay, so let us see that how we can create a template driven form. Ready for that? You want to take a 5-minute break? Actually, I need 5-minute break. I'll be back in less than 5 minutes. Okay. I'm on mute only. I'm just here. Okay. Now let us create, am I back? Am I audible, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now, do you have any questions from reactive forms? Reactive forms is over. Now we are going to the template event form. Should we move?
Yes.
Okay. So let me create a template event form for you. So what I'm going to do, and that is going to be very simple. You are able to see my Visual Studio Code? Okay. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a class here, add a type here, okay? And I'm calling that, let's say that as hero.ts, okay? And inside that, I'm going to create a type. So here I'm saying export class hero, public ID, name, power, alter ego, whatever, right? For login also, you can create a user and all that. So that is what I have done. Then next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, let's say that here I'm adding a component and I'm calling that as hero.component.ts, hero template, such that you know that you have template event form inside that. So hero template.component.ts, and this is going to be a export. So you see that I'm creating a component and I'm not using Angular CLI. So I'll say hero component, and to make this as a component, we need a component decorator. Okay, and then component decorator first is selected. So I'll say app hero. Then it needs a template. So I'm going to put template right here as of now. And here I'm going to create a template for this. I'm calling it as a const template. We will create the template event form inside that. Okay, and here I'm passing the template. Okay, so here we'll create a template event form, whatever we have to create in the same file. And to use this, what I need to do, I need to go to app.module.ts, and here I can say app component as hero component. All right, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use on the app component.html only. Here in the bottom, I'll say h3 template driven from demo, and then BR, and here we'll say app hero. All right, so we'll see that how this works. So in the hero template, we are going, and here we are going to say that, okay, let me create, first let me create some value for, let's say, the powers. So I'm saying that powers are really smart, super flexible, super hot, weather changer. And then I'm creating a model. So here I'm saying that model is equal to new hero. We created that new hero, and we are setting the initial value the way you can set in the reactive form as well, where ID is this, hero is this, power is really smart, and the fourth parameter was alter ego is chunk over street or whatever. So it's just an object for that model in the hero component. Okay, so here in the hero component, I have created that. Then let's say that I have one variable submitted false, and then I have one on submit where this dot submitted equal to true. All right, so pretty simple. I can put this in the constructor as well if I want. Nothing fancy about it so far. Now to create a now to create a template driven form, what we are going to do, first we need to make sure that you need to import the forms module, and you can import forms module in app.module.ts. Here you can say reactive forms module and forms modules. You need to integrate that. So you imported both forms module and reactive forms module. And then once that is done, here we are in the hero template component.ts, we are writing some code to create that. Okay. Now let's go ahead in the template, and here we can say div class from group label power hero power select class from control required. And here I'm showing you that how you can show something in a drop down. And here we're saying ng for let p of power. So here is your powers, and we are just displaying that. So right now you see that in template event form, you can find, if I can show you the screen, here is in the bottom my template event form. Can you see that I'm able to get those values? So I'm able to bind that value. In the same way, you can bind that in reactive forms as well. Okay, so once that value is there, let us see the Visual Studio Code again. Okay, so once that is there, we need to create the form as well. So for form, like the name and all, we are going to do that. So for that, what I'm going to do here, let us go and use a form. And a form will look like something like this. And I'll walk you through the code. So here, our form will look like this. So what we are saying, div class from group, label name, then input type text, class from control. See, we have this ID. And since this is a required field, we have to put required here. In reactive form, you are putting required in the component class. Here you are putting required in line number 11. And then in reactive form, you are binding that using form control name. Here you need to use two-way data binding. So I'm saying ng model.name, and you need to make sure that you have the name property set of your control. In template event form, if you don't set the name property, you'd get some exception. So that four things you are doing. You are taking a creating input type text, then you are giving the ID, then you are making it as a required field, then you are doing data binding using ng model with model.name, because here you created a model. Here you created a model in the bottom, right? So you are binding with that, and then you are giving the name property. Then same for the power. Here, so that is for the alter ego. That is for the name. Then same you are doing for the alter ego. And then for the power, what you are doing, you have this hero power, select form control ID power required, ng model name power. So this is your drop down where you are showing all the power, but you are setting that value with ng model dot power. So whatever is selected, you should see that. So you see here is a lot of HTML, and if you look at now the output, if I can show you the output here, you see that you have Dr. IQ and really smart, super flexible, and everything is selected here. So this is how you create a template driven form. For template driven form, only thing which you need to keep in mind that you have to set these fields. You have to set ID, you have to set you have to enable two-way data binding, and then you have to set name. If you don't set this name, let's say that you are not setting this name and saying file save, and then if you okay, it is okay even if you I mean that's optional whether you set it or not set it. All right, so file save. Now let us see that how you can put validation in template driven form. Here you created a template driven form. Now if you have to put some validation, how you can put that, right? So here, how you can put a validation in input driven form, and I'll show you that how easy it is. Let's go to this form.css. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a CSS file. Can we pass here the CSS? So here we can say template, then we can say styles and styles text or string array, right? So here I can come here and create a style. So I'm creating everything in the same file. Here I can say semicolon, and then I can say const style is equal to a string. So here we are putting a string, and then we are putting some style here. Okay, it is can I put a style like that, or we can then have to do the same thing here also, and then we can say here. Okay, so here we are creating some styling. Okay, for ng valid required. So here you see that template driven forms gives you some classes like ng valid required, then ng invalid. So you are saying that if ng valid required and ng valid required, what you are doing here, you are making the border left green. If it is invalid, you are making that red. Okay, so here file save, and if you run this, have I done some mistake here in the styling?
We need to mention that in styles, right?
Yeah. Okay, so file and save, and let's see that. So if you see my screen now, can you see that now since this Dr. IQ is valid, you are already getting a green there. If I remove that, it has become the red. As soon as I start writing, it has become the green. And how that is possible with very smaller code is Angular template driven forms already provide you some classes, CSS classes such as ng valid, ng invalid, and then you can apply your CSS to that. So here you see that in template driven form, all this code is in HTML, like all the validation, two-way data binding, and all those things. But it is also the same. Both are equal. It's not that this is better or that is better. And you can use whatever you wish to according to your scenario. Okay, so here, let me go and open browser again. Now we have covered lazy loaded. Oh, today day 5. So set value page value is just how you are reading that control. So this dot login form dot get dot phone dot set value means if you want to set some value through the code, patch value if you want to update some value through the code. Pretty simple. You can go and learn this. So any question on these things? We have covered these all topics today. Custom validation, reactive forms, conditional validation, on value change, template event forms to introduction to template event forms. As I told you earlier that this is all syntaxes, not much concept to understand. You just have to know few classes, use it. Sometimes if you don't know syntax, go on documentation, read a syntax, and you are good to go. So I'm happy to take some questions on forms before I go to day 6. No questions? Everyone fine with it? It was easy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let's move to day 6. Lazy loaded modules you already know. We need to see these things. Then this, and then we need to merge that to that. Okay. So I'm just thinking, what can we do today? Let us start with how to work with data from the API. Okay. Means updating, creating data, and reading the data and all that, right? So those are super simple, and see how much we can cover that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now I'm not going to write code in this. I'm not going to write code in this project. This project is already there, and I'll share with you for the benefit. So let me close this, and let me go and share command prompt with you. Okay, and here controls. Can you see my command prompt?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was day 5. So cd dot dot, and I'll create a new project, ng new day 6 demo, such that when we share, you know that. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. As a CSS, yes. If you have any question in meantime, you can ask, please. The time it is taking to install. Okay, so the time it is taking to install, let me walk you through the API code. We don't have in syllabus how to create Node.js API, but I can definitely show you. I can definitely show you some of the. Code which we are going to use for the API. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, my API code should be. Okay, so here in right. Can you see Visual Studio Code?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I have done, on my SQL server, I have a table called order table, and we are performing operation on Node.js. So we are creating an API. If you don't understand what is API, API stands for application interface. So for the interns, So your data is on the server, right? So what happens? You are able to see my, you are able to see OneNote, right? So what happens that right now your application is running. What application you have created is running here, and this application is running in the browser. Application is running in the browser. Okay, so here application is running in the browser, and your data is always, your data would be always on the servers. So your data is, let's say here, you are keeping that data, and this is your database. And that could be anything. That could be, I mean, that could be SQL Server, that could be MySQL, that could be Oracle, that could be MongoDB, that could be CouchDB, that could be anywhere, your database. And keep in mind that your Angular application, is running in the browser, and your database is on the server. So they cannot directly talk to each other for the security reasons, because always database is on the, it should be secure, centralized at one place, or even if it is shared across multiple server, it is secure by the cloud and all those stuff. So to talk your Angular application to the database, these two people cannot directly talk to each other for the security reasons. So to talk such that they can talk to each other, because eventually you need data from the API from the database to work, because in real application you need to work with the data. Data would go on the database, you retrieve data from the database, you create data, you delete data, and all those things. So here, in between your Angular application and your database, there is something called API. Okay, so what we call that? We call that as API. Now this API can be created in any server-side technologies. Means that API can be created in any technology which can run on the server, which can run where your database stays. So the server-side technologies are that your API can be created in Java, it can be created in Node.js, it can be created in .NET, it can be created in PHP, it can be created in Python, anything which runs on the server, your API can be created in that. So your API, you create that API in those technologies, and this API actually talks to the database. They together talk to the database, this API and all. I mean, this API and database talk to each other, and depending on the technology, you write the code. However, your Angular application or your React application or your Vue application or any application which is running in the browser, or for that matter, your mobile applications such that Android and iPhone, they talk to this API. And how they talk to this API? They send a HTTP request to this API. Okay, and they get a HTTP response from this API. So these API are called REST API, REST API. REST API, so REST is a standard, and meaning of that is that standard means like that API will work on HTTP protocol. That is like characteristics number one. Characteristics number two is, again, that is a standard, means it is not a rule. You have to follow that. Even if you not follow that, you wouldn't get any error. It doesn't mean, but you should follow that because it's a standard. So REST API means you can, if I say that I am a REST API, means you can access me using HTTP protocol. To get something out of me, you'll send me a HTTP request, and I will send you a HTTP response. So my Android application will send a HTTP request to the API, and it will get a HTTP response from the API. Now, sometimes that response would be a successful response. sometimes that response would be not a successful response. So it would contain error, it would contain error message and all that. So what happens that in REST world, there are 4 types of request. There are 4 types of request. And those requests are, so from browser, if you send a GET request, it means you are requesting API to fetch you some data. Now in GET request, what happens that you only send the request, you don't send any data. You are expecting the API to return you the data. So that is GET request. Then there's something called POST request. In POST request, you create data, means you insert data. Again, this is a standard. This is a standard. Even if an Angular application is sending POST operation, and if REST is deleting data on that, you have written a code to delete on a POST operation. None would stop you, but you should not do that. So on POST operation means create a data, insert data, all right? And the data would go in the request body. In the same way, put means update data. And then delete means delete data. So these are the types of requests. These are also known as HTTP verbs. Either you can call them as types of requests, or you can call them as HTTP verbs. Both are same thing. So what happens that when you send a HTTP request, on basis of that, API first finds what is HTTP verbs used, whether it's a GET or a POST or a PUT or a delete. So application sends that. On basis of the type of request, API sends the response. Now, where your Angular application will send request, that is also very important. So each API is known, like each browser, each website is known by its URL. Each API is also known by its URL, and which is also known as endpoint. So each API has an endpoint. So you may have an API called, let's say, abc.com/orders. So that is one endpoint. That could be one endpoint for order API. So when you send a GET request on when you perform a GET operation on abc.com/orders, it means you are expecting that API to return you a detail of orders. If you perform POST operation on abc.com/orders, means you are expecting to insert an order in the table. If you are doing abc.com/orders and performing a PUT operation, means you are expecting to update a order data. And if you are doing a delete operation on abc.com/order, means you are expecting to delete the data. All right. Now in the GET, you don't have, in GET, you do not have request body. In GET, you do not have request body. However, for POST, PUT, delete, you send, because to insert an order, you need to send an order object. So you send data in the request body and so on. Now, Angular application sends a request. The request has a type. On basis of that, application will get a response. Now, every response has a code. Okay. So every response which API returns has a code. Means if it is something 400 number, like 401, 400, means some bad request. Means if it is 401, means you are not allowed to do some authentication. It means you are not passing correct username and password. If it is 400, means that endpoint does not exist, and so on. So 400 means something not okay. Okay. If it is 500 in status code which comes from the server, it means it is I mean, you have passed correct username and password and keys and everything, but the operation which you are trying to do is not possible due to any reason. Maybe there is some error on the server, or you are not allowed to perform that operation, whatever is the reason. But again, your credential is correct, but is some server error and something like that. And your friend is 200 star, means if you take 201, it means you have got your post operation successful. If you have a status code 200, means okay, whatever you try to do, that is done perfectly. So these are the status code you need to know as Angular developer. Again, this status code would only work if the creator of API has implemented them. Okay. Now, when writing an Angular application, sometimes you need to handle HTTP error. You remember that one type of error is that which we handle through global error handling, which is part of your application. You created a global error handler service, you implemented error handler, and then you handle that. And the second type of application is that when Angular application is talking to an API, the API is returning some 200 error or 500 error. So you need to handle that, and you need to perform some operation on top of that. And I'll show you that how you can handle that HTTP error also, which is very important. So now everyone understand that how, like what is API, what is status code, what is get, post, put, delete. Any question on this?
No,
Any
sir.
question? Every intern? Each one of you?
No.
So all of you are pretty much clear about it. All right. Now, so let me just save this so that I'll send you for so here I am. So close and then close. Okay. Now let me show you. So what I have done again, API is not, you are not learning how to create API in this course, but here I have created an API in Node.js, and what this does, this performs CRUD operation on SQL Server. So here I have something called dbconfig.js, and this is kind of a connection string. Connection string means to connect to a database, you need connection string. Connection string contains information such that what is the username, what is the password, on which server the database is deployed, the database you want to connect, other options, port number, and all that. So here I have created a config file for that. Okay. Then I have created a order.js file. What it does, it is representing the order table. So here I have a class order. It has, in my order table, I have title, quantity, message, city, and all. And this is just representing that. So that is order.js. Then in package.json, you can see that I'm using libraries like CORS, Express, MS SQL, body parser, and those libraries are I'm using to create the API. So now body parser, this library will help me to parse the request body, which would come from Angular application or any application at JSON. CORS. So what happens that CORS is an error. It is called cross origin resource sharing. So what happens is that if your API is running on server A and your Angular application is running on server B, and your Angular application will try to access API which is running on server A, for security reason, browser would not allow that, and for security reason, browser will stop that. So the API which is running on server A has to enable a configuration where it would tell that, hey, if someone is calling me from that particular server or from the all servers, please allow them. It's okay. So for that, we would enable CORS at the server level. And for that, I'm using the library CORS. Then Express is a Node.js library to create routes and to create application in it. And then MS SQL is a library which helps me to connect Node.js to SQL Server. So these are the dependencies here. And here in dboperations.js, you see that what I have done, I have, and since it is in Angular, you are using ES6 modules. but Node.js use common JS module pattern, where you in Angular you use import, or wherever you are using ES6 you need to use import and export. In common JS you need to use the keyword require. So this file needs db config and MSSQL. So we are requiring that exactly the same like import statement of your Angular. Then we are saying get orders. It's asynchronous, which is going to return a promise. And simple connecting, await request, select start from orders. Okay, get order, some functions, add order, and all that. And then we are exporting those functions. So this is dboperation.js, and then in api.js, what I'm saying that if hey, whenever user is coming to the base URL /orders, call get orders function and return them orders. If user is coming to orders and ID, dot get means this particular route should be called on the get operation, return them that particular order. And then here you see that orders post means this particular function would be called when user would perform post operation. And here we are inserting the data on the server. So this is my API is. This API is running fine. If I go and here and show you the browser, in the browser you see that you can see that API is running. API orders, and here you are getting the data from SQL Server. So keep in mind, you can test the get operation in the browser. However, to test the API, we have different tools like Postman, Fiddler, and you can use them to test. It is not in the purview of this course, but when you create an API, or sometimes when someone is giving you API. So let us say that I'm an API creator. Let us see that as an Angular developer, what you need to do. So let's say that I created the API, okay, and so I have created the API, and now I'm telling you that, hey, I have created the API, go and use the API, right? But are you sure whether that API is correct or not? So as all the intern, first you need to test whether that API is correct or not. So for that, what you do, there are various tools. One popular tool is Postman. You need to go to Postman and you have to install it. You say that hey, new request. And then it is asking me to select a folder. I'll use it in existing request only. Okay. So here I'll go. And here I'll say that, hey, I want, so I'm API creator. The other team has created the API. You are able to see the Postman?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm the API creator and I'm telling you that, hey, API is available on this URL. Now, don't start using that API then and there in your Angular application. First, make sure whether that API is implemented correctly or not. Because let's say that you have written the whole Angular application, 50 lines of code, and then you are realizing that some problem is in API, or maybe you are getting error not due to your Angular code, but due to wrong implementation of API. So all the interns, the first step is that when you start working with API, someone is giving you that, hey, API is available here. Take that and test that in tools like Postman. You can use any tool of your choice. Popular is Postman and Fiddler. So here in the Postman, I would say Control V. This is a get operation, and here the header you see by default it has some header, so we don't have to worry about those hidden header, and then say send. So here I got the data. See, it means the person who created the API has created that API very correctly. It means now while using this API, if there's some error in my application, I must have implemented it in a wrong way. So always do this step. Now let us go. I'm going here to the API, and so this was my API code. And let's say that in the API, I'm doing some mistake. And let me go to the API. We are testing that orders, right? Here, instead of this, I'm saying So I've changed some code in my API, which you don't need to worry about, such that I get some error. Okay, so here, now I'm in the Postman. I'm running it again. You see, I got some error. See here, I'm getting the status code 404 not found. There's something there, some error there. Now the same thing, I am getting this error. I'm now very sure that, hey, there's some problem in the API. I can go to the API team and say that, hey, your API is not working. Before I start integrating it in my Angular application, please make sure that your API is working. Then the API team would say, okay, let me go back and fix it. So they would go here, they do something on the API. And then they would tell you that, okay, now they're telling you that, hey, can you go and test again? So you are back here. You are able to see my Postman. So you are back here and you are saying that, okay, send, and you got the data back. Now you know that, okay, API is working fine. Now you start using that in an Angular application. Okay, so this practice always you do, each one of you. Here you see that you are getting the status 200K. So interns, are you getting the message what I'm trying to convey you here?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to hear more. Yes.
Yes.
In the same way, you can go and perform the post operation. If it has written there, here I'll say that, hey, order, we have an order ID 10. Let's pass that and see whether we're getting that or not. There must be some error. It is not getting, it is taking that much time. So in this way, you should do the testing before integrating that. So this is what we talked about API today. If you have any question on this, please ask. No questions? Everyone okay?
Yes. All good.
All good. Yeah,
Yes.
today was not very tough topic. So what we are going to do on Monday, we will do okay. So Monday we'll do change detection. Okay, we'll complete this. And we'll see if we have time left, we'll come to this. This is very easy again. It is even easier than day 5. But since this is tough, I want that on Monday, when you come with a fresh mind, you understand that. And no one will explain you change detection the way I'll explain you. That's the guarantee. So that's your opportunity to learn change detection and use it. These topics are very easy. So we can do that on Tuesday. And if required on Tuesday, we can maybe start on 8 o'clock, or we can start at 9 o'clock. And if required, we can, we can go a little bit beyond 4 hours, but I'm sure that wouldn't be required. These topics are already have seen the lazy loaded modules. These are very small topics. This observable will cover in the change detection and all, but we'll see that. So far, all the topic of day 5 is covered. And the theory of API, that how you should test API and other thing is covered. And on day 7, we will start with change detection and we'll complete that. And then we'll see day 6 and day 8. Some of the topics of day 6 on day 7 itself, and whatever is left on day 8. So your last 2 days of training is left. That is Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday. Please on Monday come with a fresh mind. And whatever I have covered so far, go rewatch the video, ask me questions, And today your assignment is, so far you have got 2 assignments. The third assignment is that you need to create a login form, exactly the same login form with radio button, phone number, email, and if notification is email, then phone number is not required. If notification is phone number, then phone number is required. The same thing which we have done. So if you have any question, go ahead and ask. If you don't have any question, then over to Mahendra.
Yeah, Dhananjay, please share the next 2 days Zoom link.
Yes, that I'll send you with today resources. Okay, then have a happy weekend. Come with a fresh mind on Monday. Monday is going to be not as easy as today. You will have a lot of questions on Monday, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.